Hello, and thank you for attending this session. I am excited to share with you an insightful interview session that I've been preparing since long. Yeah, this video, the Adobe Experience Manager interview, it will share valuable perspective on the main core concepts like AEM technology, the various modules, etc. And with my experience in this field, I have tried my best to provide all. I try to compile all of them, though unique insights and any provoking ideas which I believe will be beneficial to the audience. Throughout this interview session, you will be hearing about AEM core components, architectural layers, various functional modules, and I believe you will gain a deeper understanding of AEM as a whole package that that I tried to compile. And so, without further delay, let's dive into the video and explore these competing conversations. Thank you once again, and feel free to adjust the tempo, the detail of if any time during the session you feel that a particular context or content is specific to your interview session. Let's start. So let's start with the very basic. What is CMS, or we call it as content management system? The content management system is a software platform that facilitates the creation, management, and modification of digital content. Now we know what is digital content, so I will not go deeper into that. But whatever is available online, in form of digital, whether it's image, text, etc. This content management system is a platform that facilitates of management of this data. Okay, it allows users to manage and publish content on website, intranets, internet, and other digital platform without needing extensive technical knowledge. Okay, that is one thing. So whether you are updating a blog, managing a corporate site, organizing digital assets, a CMS simplifies the process and makes content management accessible to everyone. So simple. This is what is CMS. So now let's understand what are the different types of content management system we have. What are the different, how it can deliver the content. Okay, so there are three types. One is the traditional CMS, second one is the headless CMS, and the third one is the hybrid CMS. So first thing to understand, hybrid is nothing but the combination of traditional CMS and headless CMS. And okay, so first let me explain what is traditional CMS. So we already know CMS. So CMS is nothing but where we manage the content, we create the content, we edit the content in terms of pages, we add assets. Assets is nothing but images, whatever digital content we have as digital asset we have. So for example, images, PDFs, videos, etc. Those are assets. So pages, assets, we manage them, we edit them, create them, etc. And the second part is, this is the management of the content. The second part is serving of the content. Serving of the content means how this content, whatever we have written on our pages, whether it is text, the description of a product, etc., images, etc., how it is going to serve on the HTML file. Okay, there are two aspects. Now when these two things, the generation of the content and the serving of the content, happens within the CMS environment, then it is called traditional CMS. Okay, so it provides a complete suite for creating, managing, publishing the content with built-in features and plugins for various needs. It's okay, we can skip this built-in features, etc. But to understand what is traditional CMS is, whenever we generate as well as present the content within CMS, then it is called traditional CMS. The headless CMS is nothing but the first part, which is management and generation of content, is happening in the CMS, but the serving of the content, right? I have just exposed this content in terms of JSON or various APIs, but who is serving this content? Where it is presented to users? That is unknown to us. We don't know. Maybe it's a React-based application, maybe it's some XYZ, any other application. CMS responsibility is just to create that content and then deliver this content via some API, etc. That is called headless CMS. So it focuses solely on managing and delivering content without dictating how it should be presented, because that is out of the scope. The receiver will decide how it is going to deliver that content. So for example, in my application, in my CMS, I have this data where I am storing name and address. Simple. I am just storing name and address. When I'm delivering this content in form of API, and maybe I'm exposing this data in form of JSON, I'll just have name is equal to Ritesh and address is equal to India, right? This is my, and this is a JSON object, right? Now the application who is going to receive this JSON, maybe it's a React based application, will just grab this data, name and address, and the receiver front-end application will decide what is the look and feel of this website, because CMS job was just to deliver that content. That's it. So that is called headless CMS, because there is no head of this CMS. I have created a separate playlist for headless. AEM, please watch that for better understanding. Now hybrid CMS is the combination of traditional and headless CMS. What will happen? Part of the content what we have created inside CMS will be presented to end users within CMS only. So I will have pages which end users will see, which are created in my CMS, but I will also have some APIs through which I will expose the data to some other type of front-end application using APIs. Okay, so it's a combination. So it combines elements of traditional and headless CMS. The CMS handles content management and can also deliver content to different front ends, but with more flexibility than a traditional CMS. Another feature is secure login mechanism, because of course we need somewhere way, right? Because we will have different roles. So there should be a way so that different type of users can log into your system, to the CMS, and can access the data as per their permission. So which can ensure that only authorized users can access and manage the content. Users can schedule content for future publication or set it to be unpublished at a later date. So because I mean in the whole CMS we are talking about, we will have pages, the assets, etc., right? And then on our running website, whether it is corporate website or any type of website, we want to publish the content on live website. So is there a way we can schedule that content? Maybe I want to replicate this data, publish this data on the day of Diwali, right? On the day of some sale is going on, right? Or can I unpublish this data right after the sale is complete? Okay, so those features should be there. Workflows, the steps of doneness. Tools can be configured to include approval process where content needs to be reviewed and approved before going live. So this is just one example of workflow, but workflow is nothing but we want to achieve some business functionality or process, and we can define that process and then it can be automated, right? Templates and themes. CMS platform provides templates and themes to define the layout and design of content. So we understand, right? So for example, when I go to my website and the theme says it's looking white or yellow in nature and the font is looking good, the contrast is better, so everything comes into theme so that the user experience is good, right? Template is the layout of your page. So for example, you have header, you have footer, you have left navigation, you have a product detail page, etc. So those are layout of your pages, or we call them template. A user can customize these to fit branding and design requirement. I mean, whatever is your business requirement, on basis of that you can customize it. So those features should be there in your content management system. So now we understood what is content management system or CMS. Now let's understand what are the key features of CMS. So users can format text, insert images, videos and other media, digital media, and create links and tables. Organization tools. CMS provide tools for organizing content such as categories, tags, metadata, and this helps in structuring content effectively and improving navigation. So we are just talking about, maybe if you are creating a website. In website, what we will have? We will have pages, right? In those pages we will have text, videos, PDFs, images, etc., right? So how do we manage that text, how can we insert those images or videos or other media, and then how can we create different links on our pages, so that on one single page, from one page to another page, that navigation happens, right? So everything comes under content management. Now many CMSs offer version control. What is version control? So for example, I'm working on a website, and maybe it's home page. So today in my home page I have some text is written, some details are written, and I'm updating this content. Maybe there is a new product available in my for my website. There is a new product launch, so I'm updating that content. Now in actual production environment, I just do not go directly to the page and will overwrite the content, because I might need the old content also, maybe for auditing purpose or maybe some backup purpose, right? So what I'll do, I'll create versions of my content, so that in case if I want to roll back to my previous version, or I want to see what changes we have done for auditing purpose, etc., I can go back. So that is one thing of version control in terms of content. Another version control example is so for example, for my website I'll write code, because there must be some static and dynamic functionalities also, right? So I'll write code, I'll write some HTML, some JavaScript, some jQuery, etc. And then during other enhancements or change comes, right? We update that code. So for that code also we need version control, so that if we want to go back to the previous version, right, if we want to go back or we want to see what changes we have done over a period of time, we can do that. So that is also called version control. So CMS offer version control, allowing user to track changes, revert to previous version, and manage revisions. CMS platforms support multiple user roles. What is user role? So for example, developer is one role, right? Admin is another role, DevOps is another role. So likewise, the CMS platforms, they support multiple user roles with varying level of access and permission. And we just to elaborate more on permissions. For example, one type of user should have only read access to the code. They just want to see the code what is written, but another type of access is the user can edit also. Another type of access user can delete also. So these all are permission, and on various when we talk about the repository or the content level, it depends which type of users will have which type of access, roles and permission. And in CMS, any type of CMS, and particularly in AEM, we have those options. First we will create groups, we will create users, we will assign permission to a group, we will assign users to a group, so that all the permissions assigned to a group will automatically be inherited by the users as well, right? So that we have proper user roles and permissions applied to as an enterprise level. Administrators can assign roles such as editor role, author role, contributor role, each with specific capabilities. Continuing, many CMS also support plugins or extensions to add functionality, additional functionality I would say, such as search engine optimization tools, analytics, social media integration, because these are like the very basics nowadays on your website, right? Modern CMS platforms often support responsive design. So we understand what is responsive design. For example, I have developed this website and it is running on desktop. So it is fitting on my desktop screen. I'm getting the header, footer, the images are big, etc. But when I'm opening the same website on maybe mobile device or maybe a tablet, then it automatically adjusts the height and width of the device. So for example, the header will be small, there will be no truncated data from left or right side, right? Everything is shrinked. Maybe instead of big header, we have now a hamburger type of menu, right? So those features are called responsive design, right? Ensuring content is accessible and displays well across different devices and screen sizes. Some CMSs offer tools for managing content in multiple languages. So we'll see in AEM also we have that option, we call it as MSM. So for example, my website is in English, is in French, is in Italian, is in other languages also. So how can I handle that? I will create one main master branch which is having all the content, and I can replicate this content to for other languages also. How that translation will happen from my master copy to other copies, other languages. So that option is there in AEM, but yeah, it's like a very basic feature should be available in any content management system to be true. CMS can integrate with analytics tool and track content performance, user behavior, and engagement metrics. Just I'll explain what is analytics here. So for example, within your website, you have, maybe it's an e-commerce website where you will have a checkout functionality, add to cart functionality, and of course you want to track how many users are coming to your website, clicking on add to cart button, finally going to the checkout or payment button. You want to track those people, because what happens sometimes, I'll just add to my cart, but I will not go to checkout, or I will not place the order, right? So to track users behavior, how many people are watching your videos, how many people are downloading the assets from your website. So all these comes under analytics, and then on basis of that, whatever business is having KPIs, according to that, business can take action, what enhancement we should do on our website. So those things comes under analytics. So a CMS should have an integration with analytics tools. So there are popular analytics tools available. Adobe is also having Adobe Analytics. Google Analytics is also there, right? Users can generate reports on various aspects of content management and performance. Yeah, this is also a must-have requirement for any given CMS. AEM supports it, and we are going to cover it anyways. So now we have basic idea of content management system, what it provides, what it is, the very basic idea. And Adobe Experience Manager is also a content management system. Okay, so it's a comprehensive content management solution for building websites, forms, etc. So that is also one of the capability of AEM forms, and it provides tool for managing digital content, creating personalized experiences. It is part of Adobe's Marketing Cloud suite. The next question can be asked is, what are the key features of AEM? And since we already know what is CMS and what are the key features of AEM, so we can correlate. First one is content management. AEM provides tools for creating, managing, and delivering digital content across websites and other digital touchpoints. It offers capabilities to deliver personalized content experiences based on user data and behavior. Okay. Personalized content means, so for example, based on my user role, etc., or based on my geography, based on my gender, based on my age, I want to show different content to end user. So that is achievable. All right. So for example, when a man is going to a merchandising website, then we are showing some different content, and when a woman is going to the same website, then we are showing different content based on just the gender, right? And there are other personalized content experiences can also be there, right? AEM integrates with other Adobe solutions like Adobe Analytics, and we know what is Adobe Analytics, we just covered. Adobe Target is for like targeting specific information based on different segments. Adobe Campaign to provide a holistic digital marketing experience, right? Campaign is nothing but we can create campaigns also. So for example, some offer is going on, Diwali offer, or and any festivity offer is going on, so we can target, we can create campaigns also. Okay, designed to handle large volumes of content and high traffic, making it suitable for enterprise level deployments. Provides various options for content authoring and management. So there are various ways through which we can edit the content within AEM, and then we can finally publish it. We can send it for approval. There can be workflows configured so that before it goes to publish environment, someone can approve the content, etc. Right? So that is doable. We can create MSM. Multisite management feature is also there, that for different languages we can create the content. We can roll out the content just once for all the website at once. So those features are there. So those are the key features of AEM. If this question is asked, this is how we can answer the question. Okay, the next question is what are the different flavors of AEM? The question can also be that what are the different various deployment types of AEM, or what are the different types of AEM offering. So just to try to clear the question before answer, like what is the ask in the question. Okay, AEM comes in various flavors. Three types of editions are there. Because of there are different type of deployment requirements, preferences, sometimes licensing requirements because of the cost is high of one to the other, etc., etc. Sometimes it is a preference of business, because we will see one of the type is cloud service, which is Adobe is going to host the cloud, and because of maybe some data policy, etc., the business cannot opt for that solution. So based on different requirements, business decide which solution is better. So the three options are: AEM is cloud service, right? AEM is on-premise, and the third one is AEM is managed service. We'll see what are those, what are the benefits we are going to get in each of them. So the cloud services this is cloud-based version of AEM hosted and managed by Adobe. So it will be managed by Adobe. It is fully integrated with Adobe's cloud infrastructure, offering automatic scaling, updates, and maintenance. So because it's cloud service, if you should know what is cloud, what are the cloud features, because whatever features we have in cloud automatically will come in this AMS cloud service offering also. So for example, scalability, um, automated scaling, high availability, the seamless integration with Adobe or other cloud services, that integration we have, right? All features will come automatically. Pay as you go subscription, right? That is popular. um, these features will automatically come in AMS cloud service. um, it includes advanced features such as automated scaling, like I said, high availability, seamless integration with Adobe's ecosystem of cloud services, etc. It is ideal for organizations looking for a scalable, managed, and low maintenance solution in the cloud. Okay, manage this why? Because the headache is gone. The whole infrastructure will be managed by Adobe. No need to worry that my website will there will be a downtime of my website. No, because Adobe is going to manage that, fault tolerance, multiple availability zones, etc. Whatever features we have in cloud, Adobe will take care of it, right? The upgrades, the updates, maintenance, etc., the monthly update or the schedule update, Adobe will provide. Adobe will push those updates, the monthly through monthly or weekly releases, right? Adobe will push this. Your job is just to your DevOps team will push your website specific code, application code, and content to the environment, and that's it. Adobe will manage the whole infrastructure. That is called AMS cloud service. The next one is AEM on-premise, and it says on-premise means you are going to hold your infrastructure, everything you will hold. So this is your responsibility now. To traditional on-premise deployments where AEM is installed and managed on the organization's own servers or private cloud infrastructure, right? So organization will manage it. It's just you have taken the license from Adobe, and now it's your headache. You will, I mean, of course you can, if you find any issue, you can create tickets for Adobe for any help and support. But yeah, the deployment, etc., any upgrade, etc., that's your responsibility, your organization responsibility. Provides full control over the infrastructure and deployment environment with the ability to customize according to specific needs. Yeah, suitable for organizations that need complete control over their deployment and have the resources to manage infrastructure and updates. And like I said, or few organizations where they cannot put their data because of sensitivity, because of GDPR rules, so many things are there, right? Because of maybe it's health related, government related, or federal application. So because they have the sensitive information, they cannot put their data directly to the cloud, and they want to, since that's why they want to host the application on their infrastructure, their cloud, private cloud, their own server, That's why they will opt for AEMS on-premise solution. Okay. The next one is AEMS managed service. So what will happen here? A managed service option where Adobe hosts and maintains the AEM instance, providing updates and support while the organization retains control over content and configurations. Simple. Includes regular update, support and maintenance while reducing the burden of infrastructure management. And it is ideal for organizations seeking the benefit of cloud deployment without fully committing to a cloud native solution. So it's like this solution is somewhere in between, right? But most of the organizations they actually opt for cloud as well as on-premise solution, but based on different needs it is decided which solution is better for which type of solution. Okay, the next question is what are the key components of AEM? And this is a little bit confusing question because don't get it confused with the components of AEM. So there is a keyword of component also in AEM. Those are functional components or structure components basically. But in this question the main ask is what are the different various core stuff of AEM which we consider in this AEM Adobe Experience Manager. Okay, so the key components of AEM is AEM are okay, author instance where we will create the content. So authors will create the pages, will put the data, assets, etc., everything. Publish instance where the content is served to the end user. So publish instance also there are like actually two distinction. One is the publisher instance where and it is applicable for maybe for on-premise solution where and publish instance also you can see the content. And the third one is short URL or dispatcher URL which is a short URL. For example, www.mywebsite.com, that is a dispatcher URL or short URL. That is also sometimes people call it as publish instance where content is served to the end user. That is one component. Dispatcher is a module basically which is for caching and load balancing component. And caching, we know cache, we want to cache the data so that each time I should not go to server to serve the content, but if the content is already there in the caching, so the instead of reaching that request will be served by the server, the request will be served by the caching because the data is already there, right? Load balancing means if there are multiple publish servers, maybe 1 2 3, there are 3 servers, so it's like 3 people holding packets with them, and requests are coming. So if like there are 10 people, so out of those 3 people, one person will serve the 3 people, another person will serve another 3 person, and then the third person will serve the rest of the 4. So it is like balancing the load, balancing the user, how many users are coming to your website, right? Similar to that, load balancing. There are multiple servers, multiple requests. The request will go to one of the server, but first the dispatcher will see which server is free to serve your request and then route that request to that server. That is called load balancing. That Sling is a web application framework. It is used by AEM. OSGi is for creation of modular services. We'll see that. What is that? AEM components, like I said, components are reusable building blocks. So I'll create a different functionalities for my web pages. So for example, within my page I have text component, image component, I have header, footer, etc. So I create different functional components. Templates are structure of the whole page. So for example, I can divide my page to header, same page is divided to header, then footer, then in center I want to create some content, so I will create a template for it and will decide where I can put what components. So that is template. Okay, next question is explain AEM architecture, and this question is related to cloud. So whenever you will be asked this question, please confirm if the interviewer is asking for cloud or for on-premise solution, because that way you can explain it better. This question is for cloud. Adobe Experience Manager as a cloud service represents a modern cloud native approach to deliver AEM's robust content management capabilities. So one thing is to understand whenever it's cloud, so means whatever features we have of cloud, automatically coming to AEM's cloud solution. So you can put in those features also, there is no harm. This architecture is designed to leverage the scalability, flexibility, and performance benefits of the cloud. This architecture builds upon many of the principles found in on-premise AEM. Okay, so on-premise AEM capabilities, principles are there, but adapts them to the cloud for better performance and resilience. Right, fault tolerance, scalability, auto scaling feature, the security features of cloud, everything is coming into picture. Right now, further interviewer might expand this question and can ask, what are the core components of AEM cloud architecture? Okay, so again we will have author instance. These are the environments where the content creators, marketers will work, they will create the content. And in AEM is cloud service, author instances are dynamically scalable and managed by Adobe in the cloud. So this is one line you can add. Published instances, they are used to deliver content to end users. Published instances are also scalable and can be distributed to handle large volumes of traffic. I have created a separate playlist for EMS cloud architecture. Please go through with that playlist, because that is very beneficial to understand even different nodes we have for publishing nodes, the authoring nodes, right? How they work, what is the golden node, etc. I mean, this will help in understanding the whole concept, and then you can answer this question, because there might be some manipulated questions also, right? Interviewer might ask, so please go through that playlist also. Then we have CDN, the content delivery network. It acts as caching layer between the published instance and the end user. It helps deliver content quickly by caching static assets and serving them from locations closer to the user. CDN integration is essential for performance optimization, reducing latency and improving load time. So these are the features of anyways the CDN has, but yeah, these are the core components. Furthermore, Granite framework that provides the user interface for the authoring environment, similar to the on-premise version but optimized for cloud deployment, and it includes tools for content creation, editing, management with a focus on performance and responsiveness. Yeah, Sling framework, we have Apache Sling handles HTTP request and map them to the resources within the content repository. I have created separate video how do we map resources using Sling. Please go through with that video. It is used for resource based access and integration, and it utilizes RESTful principles to handle content operation and service interactions. And I would suggest you don't memorize the whole description. Just memorize the keywords, just like that: Sling, OSGi, Adobe integration, the author instance, the publish instance, etc., etc. And just to try to not to memorize, but read these concepts, and I think those make sense. OSGi framework, it manages modular components and services dynamically. In cloud environment, it supports microservices and helps with scaling and managing different parts of AEM. Bundles and services. So I hope you are aware of bundles, but anyways, I have let's continue. We will cover that also. Handles dynamic service management and configurations, allowing for seamless updates and modifications. Adobe IO integration, it provides connectivity with other Adobe services. It's input output, by the way, Adobe input output, and that is how I did it. Services and external service, it allows for advanced integrations and API access, right? It includes capabilities for event driven integration, webhook notifications, and API access management. Please let me know in the comment section if you need any help of any of these topics. I will create videos, no problem. Cloud storage manages storage for content and assets in a scalable and redundant manner, typically integrates with cloud-based storage solutions. It ensures data durability, availability, efficient access to large volumes of content. See, everything is coming, whatever we have in the cloud. Okay, AEM is just built on top of that cloud. So that's why all the features of cloud are also coming into picture. That is one thing we need to understand. Okay, so another question is what are the architecture layers of AEM cloud architectures? You might maybe find it as a new question. So, but yeah, just the way of seeing things differently. Architecture layers. So presentation layer, application layer, data layer, integration layer, right? Presentation layer is what we see. I mean, how do we deliver the content to end users? How do we create that interface layer is there, right? How do we create the content? That is presentation layer. Application layer is the business logic is there behind the scene, how this whole functionality is working, right? Data layer where we are storing the data, how it is stored. Integration layer is how we are interacting from one system to another system, right? That is integration layer. So these are the different architecture layers. That is how we should explain first, and then maybe if the interviewer is still interested to know more about it, you can just continue one by one for each layer. So for example, presentation layer includes from where the end user is starting. Your website is served by CDN, so this CDN is my presentation layer, how it is built on Granite UI. Publish instance, right? Role is just the description I have written. For example, it manages the content delivery to end users, provides the authoring experience. CDN improves the performance and scalability. Done. Let's understand application layer. Author instance, how we are creating the content. Author instance, Sling framework, right? OSGi services, these are the backbone of how we are creating the whole content, how it is served, right? How those services are running behind, correct? uh, the roles are, it handles content creation, editing, management. Selling framework maps HTTP request to the JCR repository. OSGi manage the modular component and service. You see, I mean, everything is connected, right? We started from the very first screen, what we see on the website, and then we are going deeper inside. Presentation layer, then application layer, then data layer. JCR repository, we are very well aware of if we are giving an AEM interview or we are taking AEM interview. Java content repository, cloud storage is also, because it's cloud application, so cloud storage. Roles will be, of course, the stores and manages the content and assets. JCR repository is used for structured content management. Cloud storage handles the large files, media, etc. Then integration layer includes Adobe IO. If you have any external APIs, any third-party integration, whatever comes to your mind. I mean, because it's interview, right? Just think of it, whatever comes to your mind. Maybe in current project, previous project, you have done some type of integration, Solar integration. You are hitting any third-party service, REST-based service, anything, JSON data you are getting from some service, right? Just explain that. It facilitates communication with the other system and services, enabling advanced integration, extending AEM capabilities. So these are the architecture layer of AEM cloud architecture. Okay, next question is what are the advantages of AEM cloud architecture? One thing to notice, few questions are like sounds they sound very basic, right? But sometimes because of this interview session, we already have that pressure in our mind. We do not know the answer upfront, so it is always good. I mean, before your, I mean, when your interview schedule, you go through the interview questions, have something in your mind, at least the keywords, so that while the interviews question starts, right, with those keywords you start building the bridge. Okay, that is the key. So the advantages of AEM cloud architectures give all cloud related cloud features, cloud advantages, right? So for example, scalability, can automatically scale resources up or down based on traffic demands and workloads. And if you do not understand what is scalability, I have created another playlist for it. It's inside AWS architecture. But scalability is nothing but you have resources. For example, whenever your request goes to server serves that request. So for example, EC2 instance is one of the server which serves the request, right? And there are multiple requests coming. Then of course one server cannot handle all those requests, so we need more servers. Or sometimes you have more servers and those requests are not coming, it's less, so you need less servers. So scalability is nothing but you are increasing or decreasing the server. Okay, so automatically scaling means that do not need any manual intervention. It automatically scales up or down based on user traffic, based on traffic demands, right? High availability and reliability. It means cloud architecture includes multiple instances and redundant components across various geographic regions. Okay, what it is, why we even need that? So okay, cloud architecture includes multiple instances. For example, you saved your data, consider it as a text or any file, you have saved that in the cloud. Redundant components across various geographies. What does that mean? So there are multiple regions, right? For example, US region, Asia Pacific, Mumbai is one region. I mean, just one example I'm giving. Inside regions, we have multiple zones, right? Different data centers. Okay, whenever we save the data is saved to multiple locations. Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to explain it in a few lines, right? Why we even do that? We do that because maybe because of some reasons, because of technical failure, because of some natural calamity, or anything, because of some disaster. If by any chance one server is down, or one server is down, or one that connectivity is broken, my application is still running because now I have routed to another server, right? That is called high availability, right? One server is not working, another server is serving my request. Okay, it's not even in the same region. The previous request coming from maybe from US region, but now the request is coming from Asia Pacific, somewhere from Asia Pacific, somewhere from EU region, right? It is called high availability. Reliability means maybe because my data is stored in multiple regions, right? And because of some disaster, we totally lost that data center. That data is totally gone, right? But my data is already saved to another region also, right? Or another zone, right? That is called reliable data because I can rely on cloud. Okay, so I mean, that's why nowadays enterprises, they rely on cloud, because at the same time that headache is gone. They do that, all that maintenance, that activity for us, right? So scalability is, my instances are going up and down, servers are going up and down based on my need. That is one thing. High availability and reliability. My data is there, it is stored. Even if the one server is not running, another server will serve the request. That is high availability. Reliability is safe. Performance optimization, leveraging CDN's help. We already read that. Cloud, for caching and distributing content closer to the end users. CICD, this is very popular right nowadays. Content continuous integration and delivery. Cloud environments support modern DevOps practice, so including continuous integration and continuous delivery. So these are the advantages of AEM's cloud architecture. Okay, so the next question. Explain the difference between a component and a template in AEM. Still it is asked to be true. Okay, what is a component and what is a template? Component is a reusable building blocks of a page that provides functionality and layout. For example, text, image, carousel, etc. Components are used to assemble the content of a page. Okay, and then what is template? Defines the structure and layout of page. It includes placeholder, components, and predefined layout configuration. Okay, so for example, this whole thing, right? The yellow thing, the dark yellow thing, right? We created a structure, a layout of a page in which I am going to have a header. Header is just a placeholder. Just right now, just consider there is no header. It's just a placeholder. That header will come here. Footer will come here. Some content will come here. Now this, if we consider this structure, this is nothing but content. This is nothing but template, right? This is template. Component is, now within these placeholders I am putting components, the building blocks. Header is one building block, XYZ component is one building block, footer is one building block. Those are components. So now we understand what is the template and what is the component. Okay, next question is, what is a JCR or Java content repository? This question might come if it is very initial level of AEM developer interview. So JCR is a specification for content repositories in AEM. JSER is a hierarchical database used to store content and metadata. Nodes represent data and properties. And see, just see when we see that nodes and properties and structured data. So, for example, this inside by content, and then we have so many data, weekend data, etc. Right? So these are nodes. Nodes are created nodes, right? And then we say nodes. These are nodes, and then properties. These are the properties. These all are properties, right? So hierarchical data nodes are created, and respective metadata and properties are created. So this is what is JCR. Okay, so next question is, what are OSGi bundles in AEM? OSGi, we know this is for modular application. Within OSGi we create OSGi components, OSGi services, etc. Right? Those are Java files. Anyways, but what is bundle? The question is, what is bundle? So OSGi bundles are Java components used to manage modularization in AEM. That is theory. They allow developers to create reusable code modules and manage dependencies. AEM uses OSGi to manage components and services. Right? I will discuss what are components and service, OSGi components and OSGi services. But let's stick to what is OSGi bundle in this question. Now, whenever we will create a project and then we finally compile it, we know in our project, right, we have different modules: core module, UI apps, UI content, right? Within core module, when the build is complete, we will get this target folder, and within target folder we have this jar created. But this jar is nothing but the bundle, OSGi bundle. Now there might be another question also: what is the difference between jar and bundle, etc., etc., etc. But let's see what is inside this bundle or this jar file. So I just copy pasted this here, this bundle, right? And I will open command prompt here, and I'll just execute. I'll just extract this jar file, jar minus xf extracted, extract the files, and if I extract it, see this is opened, and I'm interested in this meta-inf folder. Go inside this meta-inf folder and we find this manifest.mf file. Let me open it, and if we open it, we will find some metadata of this file. Okay, manifest version, bnd, last modified, build jdk, etc. Right, the bundle symbolic name, the bundle name, right? What are the packages which are exported? Right, these are the packages exported, right? So this information is there, and the service components, etc. So now we know, now we understand what is the bundle. Okay, so we just compiled our code, built the project, and then we created a jar file which is nothing a bundle, and we have some metadata inside the manifest file, and this bundle, within inside bundle we have OSGi components and services, which are Java files, and this is for modular application. Okay, the next question is, how do you create a custom component in AEM? So it's little bit, this question might confuse whether the interviewer is asking technically how do we create using an ID or just a theory question, right? So maybe try to give answer in both ways. So technically, how do we create a custom component? So you should understand that if we are using CRXDE Lite or maybe through IDE, Eclipse or IntelliJ, how do we create the component? So we know that we put the custom component under apps directory, the /apps, right? So there we create new component. And how do we create the component? First we create the component folder. I'll explain in the CRXDE Lite also. We create the component, we create component folder with name under apps directory. Then we what extra data we need for a component. We need the HTML, right? We need the HTML, we need the dialog file, the XML file, right? And we want to put some HTML code inside the HTML file, and we need Sling model. We need to implement Sling model so that we can read properties from the dialog, right? And we can display on UI, right? And finally we want to deploy this whole package. There might be some services, OSGi services, from where maybe you are hitting the service, getting some data, getting it in your Slings model, etc. That extra logic. But the very basic thing is to create a component under apps folder. We create the component, we create dialog, and then we create Sling model. Now let's see. For example, this is the weekend project. That is the default package which is available online. I have just installed it, and similar to that, for my project also I want to create a component. So I will have this under slash apps, under apps I will have this folder created for my project. Consider it's my project, and then we will have a components folder. There will be other folders as well, but the question is how do we create component. So under components we'll create this node, and we see the what is the type. It's we give all this information there. I have created another video for it, how do we create functional component, but just to understand, if we just right click we can create node. We just need to specify the node type, right? So first we create this node. The primary type of this node is the CQ component. So if we just right click create node, and here we can specify the CQ component, right? This is how we specify. We give the name of the component. It's, for example, it's my component, right? It's my component. This node is created. First thing is this node. What extra we need? We need some, for example, let me open this. We need a dialog. See this dialog again. The type is, right, the primary type is unstructured, but this is when you're using this, the author input stuff, I mean the input fields name. So for example, if we see this, the inside this we have items as asset, some metadata, some properties, right? So first we create the component node. For example, my component I have added, then we add dialogues, right? And if there is any HTML file, we put logic to it, divs, etc., whatever we have in the HTML. Okay, and there are some HTML block statements, data SL by use, data SL by test, data SL by repeat, etc., call. There are so many. We'll discuss that also. Using those we design the HTML, and we write of course Sling models also. So using those Sling model we fetch the properties, right? The properties which we have defined over in the dialog, right? But just to understand, to answer this question where the interviewer is asking how do we create a component, your answer should be under apps. We need to create node, the component node under the components folder, and we need to add mandatory properties. Properties means the HTML, the dialog, the metadata associated, etc. And finally, once this whole implementation is complete, we'll just deploy this component and we will use it on pages. Next question is, what is a Sling model and how it is used? Sling models are a way to map Sling resources to Java objects, right? They use annotations to define how the data is extracted from the JCR repositories. And let's see the example. Now, for example, this is a very basic Sling model, and if you see, this is just a Java project class, right? So Sling, this is my simple Sling model, and here I have one property which is name. These are the annotations, right? And I have a getter of this property, get name, correct? Now we see, let's see the annotations what we have used. One is the @model annotation. It specifies that it is a Sling model, and the adaptables. Adaptables are like to which type it can be adapted. So for example, this can be adapted to a resource. This can be adapted, the object of this class of course can be adapted to a Sling HTTP servlet request. Okay, and then of course this is additional parameter which says default injection strategy is optional. Means even if this this property is not returned, then also it's fine because it's optional, right? And the value map value, how it is extracted. Okay, now the one thing to notice is Sling model is to map the Sling resources to a Java object. That is what we have just read. It means this property is mapped to a Sling resource. So for example, I have created this, I'm using this component, right? And the property name is name. This is the property, right? This is the property I am using in the dialog, right? How can I access this property in my Sling model? So first thing is using that block statement data sly use, I'll access the Sling model, right? And then I will extract it using this, because the binding is there from my HTL to Sling model. So for example, this is the HTML file. Okay, this is the HTML file. First what I will do, I'll just import this, right? I'll give the path to my Sling model. So this is the path to my Sling model. If you see this is the package, right? Package and the Sling model name, right? And I have this now, this property model, and then in this property I want to extract the name property, this one, this property, and then I can easily extract it. So what we have seen, I mean, we just written a new Sling model, very simple Sling model. What are the annotations we have used, and what is the significance, what is the purpose of using it? Okay, let's move on. Now next question is, explain the concept of dispatcher in AEM. So the dispatcher is AEM's caching and load balancing tool. Caching we already know, we want to cache data to the CDN, or so that all the requests are not going to the AEM server. So for example, I have already accessed a page home.html and it is now cached, and now I am, or maybe someone else is also trying to access the same page. The same page, if it is already cached, it can be given to for the next request. Otherwise, why we will go to the AEM server to response to serve that requester again and again. The more load will come to your server, there will be more performance issues, correct? So to avoid that, we cache that data and then we use CDN for that, and then those requests are handled from CDN only. That is caching, right? The next is load balancing. Load balancing we already discussed, that there are multiple servers, multiple requests are coming, and the dispatcher will see, okay, there are 3 servers, for example, these one request will go to first server, second request will go to second server, and so on. So dispatcher will see which server is free or can serve this request. On basis of that, it will distribute the load to the multiple servers. That is called load balancing. So the whole purpose of using dispatcher is caching and load balancing. And also there is one more aspect of security, and to be true, interviewers want to listen that also, because in dispatcher we configure security rules also. We configure the maybe I should show you. So this is one of the example dispatcher file, dispatcher any file, and we can see what are the rules are configured. So for example, first thing is the dispatcher, this tag attribute, and then the doc root, right? The log file label, okay, the cache, right, which I mean the cache setting, what is allowed, what is not allowed. So for example, it says there are multiple HTTP rules: get, head, put, delete, post, etc. So get and head, these rules are allowed. I mean these type of REST calls are allowed, HTTP calls are allowed, sorry. And then allowed is /content, and denied is /bin. I mean if there are any servlet calls, those are denied, right? And then rules, because I also mentioned that dispatcher is not only for load balancing or caching, but also for security. We will see that also. So rule is allow, and then URI, on which URI it is allowed, type is allowed, deny, here it is denied, etc., right? Then the dispatcher timeout, etc. Okay, filters is, this is for security. So it says allow, IPs are allowed everywhere, I mean all IPs are allowed, right? And deny, this is denied. Okay, so that is a very basic dispatcher setting. So we understand now what is the purpose of using dispatcher. So we should say it is for caching, load balancing, and security. it sits between the AEM publish instance and the end user caching content to improve performance and reduce the load on AEM server. Next question is, how do you manage user permission in AEM? So there could be different type of users. Okay, so when we will have this type of question, right? How do we manage user permission in AEM? Now permissions can be handled at both sides. One is author side, where we create the content. Second is on user on end side. Maybe your application is having some authorized content, means some login functionality, right? User first will log into the application and then can only access your application, right? So first try to understand what is the question from interviewer, whether he is asking in terms of managing user permission on author side or if it is on publisher side. Okay, this question is for authoring side. How do we handle it? So user permissions in AEM are managed through user admin interface. So there is a separate interface given by author, AEM author. You can create groups. Groups can be created and then users can be created, and we will assign users to groups and then set permission at the component level, page level using ACLs. Okay, so let's see how we can create user groups. So for example, I just landed on the author instance and then access the tool icon, and then there should be something called security. Yeah, we can create user groups and then permissions assignment, right? So let's see one by one. So if I click on users, I can create users. I can click on create, then the ID of the user, test user, very quickly, test password, test user, test user, right? So user, save and close. Traceable already exist. Maybe, yeah, the user is created. This is, we create user. If we want to create, no, don't need if we want to create group, maybe create a group, and this is my test group to test group 2. We have quickly we just have created users and groups, one user one group. Now if you see the permission here, we can add permissions on groups or on users. The recommended way is you assign users to group and then add permission to group. Okay, so let's go back and I will go to my group which I just created. So I created test group. This one I created, so I can go to this group and go to members, and right now there are no members. I'll just test user. I created test user, test, there is a typo, user 2. So we can just add, it's very simple, right? And now we can just give the permission to the group. So permission to the group, I'll search my group, test group 2, and then it's very simple. We just need to edit it, whatever permission we want to give. Restrictions, these are the various type of restrictions or privileges, right? We can give privileges and simple, right? So this is also fine, right? How do we manage user permission in AEM? Yeah, in AEM author side. Next question is, what is the purpose of the apps directory in AEM? So we already covered that. First thing is, apps directory means it is for your project specific components, right? So the apps/apps directory is where custom application and components are stored, just so that it is meant for developers to create and manage their custom code, templates and components. And just to iterate, we just saw under apps we can project, and we have client libs, custom components, custom I18, custom OSGi configuration, everything custom, whatever is applicable for my project or my application. Now next question is how do we implement a custom workflow in AEM? Okay, now this is an interview, so please do not expect that the first interview will ask what is workflow. Of course it doesn't make any sense, right? He can ask any question from anywhere. So if you do not know, anyways, let me cover that also, what is workflow. Maybe I will add that slide also, but interviewer might ask any question anytime. So this question is how do we implement a custom workflow in AEM? And to implement a custom workflow, we need to create a new workflow model using AEM's workflow model editor, define workflow steps and participants, implement custom workflow process as Java classes, deploy, this is applicable everywhere, deploy and configure the workflow model. So let's see that. So I just, okay, I'm again on the author screen, click on tools, click on workflow. And then here first we need to create a new model. For us there are multiple things, models, instances, launchers, etc. Right? I'll try to cover everything in this video only, but yeah, to create a new model, click on models. Right, we'll create a new model, so click on create model, give it some name. This is my test model, right? And test model. The test model is created, then we can edit it. This is my new workflow model. So first we need to create it using the console, and then these are the steps in the model we need to configure. So it's like the process flow or flow chart, right? The flow will start from here, you will do something here, then here, then here, then finally it will end. I have created a separate video for the workflow model, but I'll just give a brief description how do we configure it. So what we can do, we can double click and then we can add things here. So for example, I'll add a process step. So if I just search here process, right, a process step, right, and then I can configure some process. There are some defined process we have, right? So for example, activate the page, I want to activate the page, correct, right? Activate this page. I can add even some and or splits. So for example, and split, I can add that. Okay, after this as well as this should happen, and then it should proceed, right? I can add maybe one more approval step here, approval, right? Oh, sorry, again process step of approval, process. Process step, I can add, what is this process, some approval can be done as well here. Let's even forget about approval, anything. So for example, I want to create thumbnail, create asset, etc., anything, right? And then I want to do something and then something else also similar to that. I can add or step also, right? Or step I can add here, or step, right? So yeah, where the hell, yeah, or split, sorry. And finally, once I am done with it, this is how the workflow model will be executed. The only thing is, you see, we just added a process step here, which is like some action I want to do, right? So for example, here I have added that process step of activating the page, but maybe I want to do something which is not out of the box available, something very specific to my project. In that case, we need to create our own custom process step, and that will come here once we will deploy the application, deploy our code, and that we can select. And that is also very simple to be true. It's nothing very challenging. It's one thing is it's a component, OSGi component, right? And this is the annotation we need to use, and it's just we need to implement the workflow process. After implementing the workflow process, we need to override this execute method. Execute method will have 3 parameters: item, work item, workflow session, metadata, map. It's better if at least we you memorize at least the method name, this interface, and what arguments this method has. Because I have noticed few interviewers, they are very rigid in terms of they want to listen that the person, the interview knows about this method, this this interface name, these arguments, etc. Until unless, I mean, of course they are not satisfied unless they hear that the interviewee knows about that. So just try to at least memorize them. At least when I take interview, I do not consider that a person should know even the syntax, but it is good, right? And then finally, I mean, once we override this method, it's just whatever business logic we want to implement, we need to implement, and this is how we can create our own custom process step. Okay, so this is, now we know how can we implement a custom workflow in AEM. Now the next question is explain how to handle multilingual content in AEM. So multilingual site is nothing but your website is in multiple language. I mean, it supports multiple languages. So for example, your website is for US country also, Canada also, Switzerland also, German also, French also, so many is Spain. So in that, what that is called a multilingual website. Okay, and then how do we handle it? Multilingual content in AEM is managed through language copies. You can create different language branches under the same content path, and likewise we just seen, and then use translation tools to manage content in different languages. So for example, for this weekend website, we already have these nodes created, different languages created. So if you see here, we have a language master, okay, which has contents. For example, this magazine, etc. If we go inside US, here also we have, so it's just the same content everywhere. Switzerland also we have, right? German also. So we can create a language, we can create a different nodes for languages. And this is something else, the language master. We have this MSM feature also available. MSM is multi-site management. What can we do? We can create a language master and then language copies, right? This is language master, because if there is same content on your website, you do not want that your author, business author, will configure the same content again and again for different websites. So what we will do, we will just create language master, and then we will create rollout configurations. Your author will come to the language master, will open the master copy, will edit it. So for example, if this one has some changes, author will just open this, will do some changes here on this web page. So for example, I want to edit this magazine to, this is my magazine, updated, simple. I mean, I'm just trying to explain it. And then author can just roll out this page. It means this page will be rolled out to other language copies also as well. So for example, if you see this, we can USEN, and then I have created this one, we can CAEN, etc. So it will be just replicated. So that is the gist of this question. Interviewer is basically he wants to know that you understand what is MSM feature, what is language copy feature, and if you can explain. So that is how you can answer this question. Next question is, how do you use AEM's content fragment model? So again, the same thing. Please do not consider that this will be in flow. So of course he might not ask what is content fragment model. He directly can jump, how do you use the AEM content fragment model? But to understand content fragment model, allow you to define structured content type that can be reused across multiple channels. So you create content fragments, and then you can use the same content fragment model at several places. So it's like create one time, use multiple times. You create a model in AEM and define fields and data types, right? And content fragments are then created based on these models. So first we create the models, and then we create content fragments using those models. Let's see them. One thing to notice, whenever we create content fragments or templates, we should always create configuration folder for us, right, for our project, so that we can better define where do we put what, right? So what we should create a configuration folder. Just click on I should start from here. Click on this one, click on tools, click on configuration browser, right? Click on create, give it some names. So I'll say test conf folder, test conf folder, and then the option for which you want to enable it: editable template, content fragment models, blah blah blah. For us it's just content fragment models. So click on create. Let's create it, and then we can create our content fragment model, right? So go back and then scroll down. We should have content fragment models here under general tab. Click on content fragment models, and here we should see our newly created folder we just created. Where it is, this one, test conf folder. Click on that, and here we can create our own content fragment model. Click on create, give some model title. It's test content fragment model. There should not be any space. Enable the model, click on create. The content fragment model is created, but first we need to configure it. Configuration is what are the fields we need to add in content fragment model. So we have different data types, and though I have created a separate video for it, but I just want to give a summary to it. So for example, this one, it's a single line where we can define some properties. So for example, field label, this is my name property, I would say name property, right? And similar to that, I can add other fields also, multi-line text. So for example, this is address. Simply I have just created a new model, save it, and it's saved now. And now we can create our own content fragments. And one thing to notice, content fragments are assets. Likewise, we have images, we can create content fragments also. So click on assets, click on files, and we can create our own folder here. So let's create a new folder and create a content fragment demo, right? And click on create, and this is click on create. And if we click on content fragments, we will not see anything. And what is the reason? I have explained it, but I will explain it again. So if we go back and go to assets and click on the properties of this folder what we have just created, let's open the properties. So click on the properties. Sometime I don't see it's here only, but I don't see it, I don't know why. Cloud services, and here we need to give the same cloud configuration which we have created, the conf, right? So our conf was test conf folder, this one. This is the configuration browser, through browser we created, right? Save. And now we should be able to create content fragments using the same model which we have created. Click on next, give some title. This is my first CF content fragment model, content fragment. Now using model we create content fragment, and I can give my name is Ritesh and I am from India, proud to be an Indian, right? And let's save it, close it, and we just created a new content fragment, right, using content fragment model. Okay, next question is what is the AEM CRXDE Lite interface? It's very basic question, and I think will only be asked to a junior developer. And CRXDE Lite is a web-based interface for managing the JCR repository in AEM. It allows developers to browse and edit nodes, properties, and content directly from a browser. And this is what it is. It is called CRXDE because if you see even the URL, we see it's CRX/DE. And we can see all the nodes here, whether it is apps where we put the code configuration etc, or content where we put the content pages etc. So everything is there. And this question is also a little bit technical question, but might be asked, how do you create and use AEM page templates? So page template we have already seen. What is template? It's a layout of the page. What we need to do, first we need to log into the AEM author instance, create the configuration, and then we navigate to tools, general, templates, we will see it. because sometimes we need to know all these steps also, because we do not, when at the time of interview generally we do not have system in front of us, and but interviewer is still expecting us to answer this question. So it's better if we know the navigation. So just tell that we need to log in first to the instance, click on the tools icon, then general, then with templates, create a new template by entering the title and selecting the template type, and then we can design the template layout by adding the configuration components and defining the layout areas. We will see that. And then we need to set up component policies to control what can be added or modified by the authors. Save, and we need to activate the template to make it available for use. Then finally we can create new pages using this template from Sites console and customize as required. So let's see it. Like I said, it is always good if we give some extra answer, because that way we justify that we know better than others. So first we need to create a configuration, like I said earlier, for whether it is a template or your content fragment model. We need to define the configuration folder for us, right, for the project. So click on configuration browser, click on create, and this time it is my template conf. It's template configuration, template conf, right? This is not required. I'll just put the same template conf here also, and we need to select for which purpose. So this time it's editable template. Create. So the folder is created, and now we can go back, click here, click on templates, and we can go to our template conf we just created. Here we can click on create. This is the template available to me. I have installed this weekend project. So click on this, click on next, give some title. This is demo template, and click on create. Description was optional. Click on open, and here if we see, just give a second. Yeah, now we can see we can expand this left navigation. Here we have three things: structure, initial content, and layout. Structure is where we define the components default available to that template. So for example, if I want to configure maybe maybe some text, I'll add text here, and I can configure some text. Sometimes this is text, right, and I can add header, footer, etc. Right, I can preview it. I can add some initial content also to it, or I can define the layout also, right, the layout of like where I want to configure what this can be achievable. I'm just giving quick summary here. There are detailed videos are also available in the playlist. Please check that if you need more detail. But this is how we just create a new template, right, and using this template. So we just created this template, and now the template name is demo template, and then we can create pages using this template. Next question is, what is the AEM query builder and how is it used? AEM query builder is a tool for querying the JCR repository. It allows you to perform complex queries to retrieve content. It's just like we can access the JCR repository and we can get results. Let's see the example. For example, in this one I have just used this query builder, right? I have injected this, and this is my model class, right? And how I have used it is one of the method I have written where I am creating the query. This is the predicate group, and the predicate says it's a XPath based query, and where this is the path, and I want to search the word, and then this is how I'll just execute the query, right? I just execute the query here and I'm getting the results. So it is always good if we at least know how do we describe. So for example, first I have injected the query builder, and then using the query builder here I have used the create query. So it is always good if we know the method name at least, that builder.create query, in which I am passing the predicate and the session, and predicates will have whatever I want to search, I mean that predicate I need to create, and that session, from how I am getting that session. Always good to explain that using resource resolver, service user, I'm creating the session and then I'm passing it to the query, create query method, and then finally I am searching the results. Okay, next question is, what are the best practices for AEM development? And actually this question is very vast in nature, but I have just compiled few of them. But for a debate purpose, it's very long topic. Okay, so what we need to do, follow AEM's standard practices for component development. Use Sling model for data binding. Sometimes what people do, we just to avoid using Sling model, using the direct binding through properties dot those out of the box modules, right? Leverage AEM's caching mechanisms. Keep code modular and reusable and optimized, and please avoid duplicate code, etc. Regularly monitor and optimize performance. And like I said, the list is very long, that we need to follow best code practices also while we write the code, functional programming, etc. Use proper annotations, use Sling APIs, right? The list is very long, so it is always you try to explain in whatever you can explain. If you know more about it, just add it to that list. Okay, next question is, how do we design an AEM architecture for high availability? Okay, this such type of question usually goes for architecture level interview, but sometime for a technical lead also this type of question might be asked. And for high availability, deploy AEM in a clustered setup. And this question is for on-premise, because for high availability, if it is already on cloud instance, and we can always pitch in that also, that if we are using AEM as cloud solution, it means AEM Adobe will take care of that high availability, scalability, all those key concepts. Adobe will take care of it because it's on cloud. But if it is on-premise solution, we need to deploy AEM in a clustered setup with a multiple author and publish instance, because if something, use a dispatcher to cache and balance the load and ensure that underlying infrastructure, when it is perfect, for example database, etc., file system is also redundant. Because it is high availability concept, means if something goes wrong with one of the instance, how do you handle those type of scenarios? So those you need to keep in mind. Okay, we already discussed this one, but I mean sometimes interviewers ask question, they manipulate the question and then they ask. So that's why I put this question also. What is the role of the dispatcher in a high availability setup? The dispatcher caches content to reduce load on the published instances and improves response time, right? That we have already seen. It also provides load balancing by distributing requests across multiple published instances, enhancing high availability and fault tolerance. So we have just seen that, we have already learned it, that it is for caching and load balancing, but we just modulate our the same pitch to different tone. I mean we just manipulate the response, right? And it is now responding how it is responsible for high availability setup. And always remember, whenever if there is a question and we might not confident about that question, always think about it. Okay, do not feel hesitate, think about it, take your time and then respond. And sometimes you give different response and then you come to the same point again, so that is also fine. Just do not show that you are nervous or you since you are not aware of the question and then you are trying to manipulate. Just don't do that, take your time. And still if you do not know the answer, because sometimes interviewers they ask question which is very problem centric, which they have faced, and it's very rare issue, and they expect to you to receive that type of answer also. So it's okay, sometimes we need to pass question also if we do not know what is the answer. Okay, this question is, how do we integrate AEM with external system? So integration with external systems can be achieved using, and this is very simple question to be true, REST APIs to interact with external services and OSGi servlet services to integrate with backend system. So consider there is a system and which exposes REST based APIs. How do we integrate it? So one way would be I will create OSGi services, and through servlets I will invoke the service, the OSGi service, and through OSGi service I will consume those REST based service. That is one way. But if this question is for architects, this can be answered differently. So we have API gateways also available. So for example, I do not want my OSGi service to handle all those server loads. What I will do, I will offload it to maybe AWS API gateway, where what I will do, I will create the APIs, right? And those are external APIs outside AEM system, okay, from my front end. And those APIs are exposed. I know what is the data contract, what will be the request payload, etc. And then this request I will bind from AEM. I will create the front end layer where I will have the form container. Maybe I will have the form, and using that form I will have the API endpoint. The request I will create from my form. I will add those many attributes, whatever parameters. For example, I need name field, address field, so I will add them on my form, and then once it will be submitted, it will go to the API gateway endpoint. So this is hosted outside AEM environment. So for example, AWS or Azure service, right? And then from there we will have other services be invoked. So for example, external services, external third-party services will be invoked. Whether I will create Lambda functions for it, right? Through Lambda functions I will invoke those third-party services. So on basis on we need to understand, if the question is for architects, then we need to also think that there might be other possible or scalable solutions. Okay, the next question is, what is the purpose of AEM service user and how is it configured? Sometimes we say it system user also. A service user is AEM. In AEM is used to perform background tasks and interact with the JCR repository securely. It is configured through the Apache Sling server user mapper service and is associated with specific permission to ensure security. Now, but first let's understand what is this service user, system user, what it is. So basically, when we access the JCR repository programmatically, so let's first, before go one step back, when we want to access the repository, what we will do? We have already seen that we create users, we create groups, we create permissions, and that is how a human interact with the system is able to access the system. That is how it happens. But through programmatically, when we write code, and through code I want to access my repository, I want to access any node, I want to read the node, I want to delete the node, I want to delete or edit the properties. These are all crude operations I need to perform on JCR repository. How will I do that? So through programmatically, I need some way to access that repository, and system user or service user is the key to get that. So what we will do, we'll create the service user, we will map it against to which bundle or code it has access, and then what access this user is having, whether this user is having access to read the content, a particular area where it can read the content, or can delete the content, edit the content, or whatever actions are available, can replicate it. It is achievable. Okay, so let's deep dive. We have just seen this use case. What we were doing, we were using the query builder API, and on this path we are trying to search in the JCR repository. This path we are searching something, so we need some access. So we must have seen here we are passing this session, and session we are adapting through resource resolver. With this resource resolver we are getting from this method, and from this method what we are doing here is this line. So it's like for a particular resource I need access, so it is like that. Okay, now here in this method what we are passing parameter, and this parameter it's just a map where we have the key and value. The key and value, if we see, it's some sub-service, it's some service name, what it is. Okay, so we are just passing this service name here, and then we will get this access. Now how this mapping is happening, that this service name, using this service name I will have access to the repository, whether it's read access, delete access, edit access. How we are achieving this? Now if we open the configuration manager, so I'll just access the system console, and I'll open this configuration. So I'll just open the configuration, right? And I just said using user mapper service we can achieve it. So user mapper, if I open this user mapper service, there are different mappings available, right? Let me create my own mapping. So what it asks is service mapping, and it says if we provide this service mapping, then this we will have some access. So what it says, first we need a bundle ID, right? What is bundle ID? Bundle ID is the bundle, the symbolic name of that bundle. Now let's see, for example, my code is there inside. I'll just go back and I will access only bundles, and for example my code is there inside this bundle. So inside this bundle that file is there, that Java file is there. So the symbolic name is the bundle ID. So what I will do, I'll copy it, I'll put it here, simple. So what it says, first should be bundle ID, then colon, let me add colon, right? I'll add colon, then it says sub service name. Now this is where that sub service what we just created will come into. So I'll copy that sub service name here, right? And then it says after that equals to and something called username. Now this is what is service user. This is the service user which will have access to your repository, whatever access it has, whether it has read permission, write permission, whatever it has will be applicable. So for example, what I will do, I'll just say sub service and I'll just create a user. So for example, my user is my service user. Okay. So what I need to do additional now, I need to create this service user, right? And then I need to assign permission to this service user, right? One of the example could be, and I need to save this, and one of the example to this path I will have read access so that I can read this path and then can perform search query. Okay, so simple. Now to summarize, now we can summarize. Service user is how we perform background tasks, like for example search task we have just implemented, right? Security. Next question is, how do we manage AEM's performance at scale? Okay, again this question is very vast in nature, and the response will differ of course for developer, lead and architect, right? I have tried my best to put a summary of what we can do for to manage AEM's performance, but please add extra to it. Caching. Configure the dispatcher to cache frequently accessed content to reduce the load on the published instance. Indexing. Use Lucene, Oak indexing, Solar, Covio, whatever you have in your infrastructure or is allowed, or on this different use cases, which one is better for your search to improve query performance. For example, create custom indexes for frequently query properties. Content distribution. Use the AEM replication agent to distribute content efficiently. Here we have Sling content distribution as well. That is the latest feature. Load balancing. Distribute traffic across multiple published instances to prevent any single instance from becoming a bottleneck. Of course, that means we need to, that setup of that dispatcher is correct, should be correct. Monitoring. Implement monitoring tools to track performance metrics and identify bottlenecks. So for example, AWS CloudWatch, I mean if you are using AWS features, CloudWatch, New Relic, all these are monitoring tools, to monitor your application is performing well or not, there are any health issues which you need to fix, right? Or the load is distributing among all those publisher servers or not, that also you need to check everything. If there are any error issues, Splunk reports are also provided by AEM. So if there are any Splunk issues, check the Splunk logs. If there are any 404 errors, 500 errors, okay, if the logs are not loaded with your logs are not enabled on debug mode, right? So all those things we need to check for our AEM performance. For front end also we can check, for example, through Lighthouse report, see if there are any client libraries which are taking too much time, or any API call is happening from front end which is taking too much time. How can we do them better? If for example any image which is of higher size is on your web page which is taking too much time to load, right? Any console level error, any script which is taking time, or failing, because of that something else is also breaking. All those things come into performance and we should check that. And of course the regular maintenance, etc., whether it's on cloud or on premise solution, we should do that activity as well. What is AEM's content repository and how does it impact scalability? AEM's content repository is implemented using Java Content Repository. Repository size. So of course, as content grows, the size of the repository increases, right? So that is one scalability impact. Efficient indexing and query management are crucial. So if the repository is more and we are searching something, for example, and there is no indexing, proper indexing, of course it will search through whole repository and it will have an impact on performance, right? So we need to think of all those aspects. Large repositories can slow down performance. Use hierarchical content structure and indexing. Clustering. AEM supports clustering to scale the repository across multiple nodes. This helps in managing high traffic and large content volumes, and this is for on-premise. For cloud, we already have that different nodes, right? So it will be taken care in cloud. Okay, next question is how do you handle AEM's content versioning and rollback? Versions can be created. Each version is stored in the JCR repository and we can view and revert to previous version using the AEM interface. To roll back to a previous version, navigate to the page version history in AEM, select the desired version and activate it. Let's see how does it happen. So I am just on my author instance. Let me access any of the page. I will go to the site, weekend site. Right, I will go to one of the page, maybe let me go to this about us page. I'll just edit it and this is what we have, right? See this text about us. Now let me go back and here from the left hand rail, what we can do, we can just select the timeline. So it says page is created, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'll create a version of this page. So just click here, save as version and put a label. So for example, I will say 1.0. This is my 1.0 version. I'll create and this 1.0 version is created. Now what I will do to this page, I'll just change some text. It looks like some inheritance is there. I will break the inheritance and here now I will write about us changed. I just changed this text, right? Now I go back here and let me refresh this page about us and 1.0 is already created and after that I have added the page, right? I'll create another version, save as version, and now this version is 2.0. So 2.0 version is where I have the change text, 1.0 is where I have the this text is not there. Now what we can do is, if the current version is 2.0, I just select the previous version, right? And I can compare it to the current version. That is one option. So I'll just click here, compare to current. And this will open the difference between the current version and the previous version. This is my current version where I have this text and it is opening. And this is where I do not have, and it will even show what is the change text because it's added. That's why it's green. If it is removed, it will come as red. Right, so I have seen this text. Now consider a scenario where this change was added by mistake and I need to revert it. So what I will do, again I will select this, right, and I will go to this version which I want to revert it to and I will just select revert it to the version. Just click here and now if I refresh this page again, it is again about us. So this is how we can use the version and rollback feature. Next question is, what are the key considerations for multi-site management in AEM? Multi-site management we already know, right? MSM feature. What are the key considerations? Blueprint and blueprint sharing. Use blueprint to create and manage multiple sites effectively. Share components and templates across sites. Language copies. Manage multilingual sites using language copies or translation framework. Content aggregation. Governance and permissions, set up permissions and governance to manage content and access across different sites. This is a bit theoretical to understand, but be aware that such type of questions might also come, though it's very rare. Okay, this question a little bit more related to DevOps team or the architect team, right? But still good to know. How do you approach disaster recovery planning for AEM? The first one is backup strategy. Regularly backup the content repository, databases, and configuration, etc. So in AEM Cloud, it automatically happens, manages by Adobe. Replication, use replication agent, Sling content distribution to replicate content across data centers, right? Failover mechanism, set up failover mechanism for both the AEM application and the underlying infrastructure. Testing, regularly test disaster recovery procedures to ensure they work effectively. Next question is explain how AEM integrates with Adobe Analytics. And to be true, I have just written these two bullet points, but this is a very vast topic. I have created another playlist for it. How do we use the Adobe Analytics, the integration? Please go through with that. But in nutshell, what we do, we create a data layer at AEM side. Data layer is nothing but the properties what we want to send over network for which we want to create reports, etc. We want to save that data. We create the client lib over Adobe using Adobe Launch. We integrate that client library on template on pages, right? We create rules on Adobe Launch side, and that is how we send the data over Adobe Analytics. Okay, next question is how do we optimize AEM for search engine optimization, SEO? So SEO friendly URLs, ensure URLs are clean and descriptive, and Adobe documentation also describes, the title should not have there are some case sensitiveness, there are some parameters defined by Adobe, please check that also. Meta tags, use meta tags for SEO components to manage titles, descriptions, and keywords. Generate and submit a sitemap to search engines. Basically, sitemap, that XML file will have all the URLs which a search engine should crawl. Sometimes we also put those URLs which should not be crawled in disallow tag, right? So for example, search page should not be crawled, 404 page should not be crawled, etc. Right? So put those URLs also. Ensure content is optimized for search engine by using proper heading, keywords, and alt attributes for images. So this is just a very small description, but if you want to know more about search engine optimization, please go through the documentation or let me know. I can also create another video for it. But I think for interview perspective, if we can describe this, that is also fine. Next question is what are the best practices in terms of security for AEM? Okay, so whenever you call security, right, these things are very common in nature. So for example, access control, least privilege access, user should have. Use the principle of least privilege for user permission. I mean, for example, I just need to I should be able to only read the content, but I can access the data, I can edit the data, delete the data. That is not a secured application. Whatever is required, least required, that only those privilege should be given to that user. Then patch management, regularly apply security patches and updates. If it is cloud environment, Adobe will take care of it. If it is on-premise environment, yes, you need to take care of that. Secure configuration, configure AEM and the dispatcher securely, including the SSL encryption, we all know, HTTPS, etc. Audit logs, monitor and review audit logs for unusual activities. Yes, this is very crucial. For example, Splunk errors, check if there is any unusual activity. There are so many things happening in 2024, right? The security rules are there. We should also have some dedicated DevOps team to check the logs, etc. if there is anything suspicious. Okay, how do we implement a content delivery network or CDN with AEM, right? So configure the dispatcher, set up the dispatcher to work with your CDN provider for caching and load balancing. Configure CDN settings to pull content from the AEM publish instance and cache it at edge locations. Edge locations are proximity wise, which are closest location to the users, those are called edge locations. So for example, your application is hosted in Europe region, and you know your users are also from Europe. So, and user is trying to access your application, because the Europe regions are the proximity wise are closer, very close to the user. So the edge location in the Europe will serve that request. So that is edge location. URL rewriting ensure that URLs served by the CDN are correctly rewritten to point to your AEM content. Yeah, that is also a crucial point. Okay, this question is explain the AEM Cloud Manager and its benefits. So it's DevOps related, but it might be asked from developer and architects as well. AEM Cloud Manager is a DevOps tool provided by Adobe for managing AEM instances in the cloud. Okay, automated deployment. It simplifies the automation of the deployment of the code and content. It integrates with CICD pipeline for efficient development workflows, and it provides tools for monitoring performance and optimizing instance. What are AEM's capabilities for personalization? First, let's understand what is personalization. Personalization means I'm getting different user experience for different type of personas. So for example, when different segments users are coming to your website and they are getting different user experience. When a female is coming, then merchandising is showing female related options. When a male is coming, then different one. That is one example, but there could be other examples also based on age, based on your role, etc. Correct? So that is personalization. Now capabilities include we have Adobe Target. We can create segments. Those segments could be, for example, age, gender, geography, etc. And then we can target on those segments using Adobe Target. So within AEM, what we can do, we will use AEM's targeting functionality to deliver personalized content based on user behavior, location, demographics, and of course the segment users, and deliver tailored experience based on their interactions and preferences. Content fragment can also be used as one of the personalization feature, because I mean the main purpose of content fragments is you reuse the same content on different areas. This question is a little bit technical. What is the role of a Sling filter in AEM? So Sling filters process HTTP requests and response in AEM. So both can be filtered, request as well as response, and they are used for tasks such as request processing, modify or inspect HTTP requests before they reach servlet or component, and the response processing also after response before they are sent back to the client. And let's see this example. What I have done is I have just written one OSGi component, right? There are some build issues, but that's not the goal of this exercise. Just to explain how do we write the code, and I'm implementing this request filter interface and then overriding this method called do filter. What I'm doing is whenever I will get this pattern, this is the pattern / content star means everything, anything which is under content, right? And what I'm doing is I'm just setting header to the response. So once I receive response, I'm setting this custom header. That is what I'm doing, and I'm applying the same method to the chain also. So it's quite simple. Just we can update request as well as response. So now what we have learned is filters can be applied to different scopes. Request, the filter process incoming request before reaching servlet or JSP. Of course, in AEM case, it's just servlet or HTLs. Response, the filter process outgoing responses after servlet, both. So that option is also available, of course. And then the filter pattern. The pattern specifies which URLs the filter should apply to. And then filter order. The sling.filter.order property determines the order of filter execution. So for example, if there are multiple filters, we can specify the order, and lower value means the filter will execute earlier, means that lower is the value, the higher it will become. So this is the pattern. on which content path it should be executed, and this is the order. So for example, if there are more filters and there is another filter is of having lesser than 10 value, that will have more priority. Now next question is, what are the asynchronous operation in AEM? Let's first understand what is asynchronous. Asynchronous means that is not happening immediately. Asynchronously means you are doing some activity and you have started this asynchronous operation, so that is also happening, and you are not waiting for that operation, you are continuing your other tasks meanwhile that operation is being running in parallel. So that is called asynchronous operation. Asynchronous operations are processes or tasks that run independently of the main application thread or request response cycle. These operations allow your application to perform tasks without blocking or delaying the immediate response to the user. So I mean, I have executed a asynchronous operation. I will not wait for the response. I will continue my other activities. Meanwhile, I will get the response. Asynchronous operations are particularly useful for tasks that may be time consuming or involve waiting for external resources. So for example, this asynchronous operation, and it requires some approval from any third party or some business approval. So of course I cannot wait for that activity, so I will just start that asynchronous operation. Maybe it will take some time to get that process approved. Just approval is just one example, but there can be other scenarios also. Maybe it's a third party API which will take some time, so rather than to wait, it can run in the background, and other activities, application tasks can continue, thereby improving the responsiveness and performance of your AEM application. And one of the very good example of a synchronous operation in AEM, if we deactivate or assets, bulk assets or pages in single go, we will see that notification that this operation is running in background. Right? That is also one asynchronous operation. What are the common use cases of asynchronous operations? So common use cases are external API calls, fetching data from or sending data to external services or API without delaying the user's experience. I have submitted a form and I just want to show some message to the user, but that operation is still happening in background. So to improve the user experience, sometimes we go with asynchronous operations. One example could be, so for example, there is a registration process on your application, and when user registers, the profile is created on multiple systems. Multiple systems are involved in that registration process. Now when this API execution will be completed, it might take some time because we are dependent on several external systems. So rather than we wait, what we do, we have asynchronous operations. The profile creation is still happening in the background, but we show the message to the user, and of course if there is any technical issue while the profile is created, we can handle it with different use cases. For example, if profile was not created earlier, maybe once the next time user will try to log into the application, then that time we will validate if earlier execution was successful or not, or how do we handle it. Those are different business use cases, but yeah, this is just one example. Background processing, executing long-running tasks such as data processing, content indexing, large-scale operations that do not need to be completed immediately. Task scheduling, running periodic tasks or scheduling jobs that perform operations at specific intervals or time. So for example, we have a backend job, right, which maybe will pull the data from a third-party service, kind of importer or puller, and will ingest this data to AEM system, or maybe any system, system from where we are pulling this data. That can also be one example of asynchronous operation, because maybe it's happening on when the system is not in use, or it's not dependent on the activities which are happening on the system. Resource optimization, offloading tasks to asynchronous processes to avoid blocking critical resources or threads. So these are the common use cases of asynchronous operations. Now this question is, what are the methods for handling asynchronous operations in AEM? Although the backend of AEM is Java, and we use OSGi as well. So, and in OSGi we can create servlet services. So whatever we have available in Java, that can also be utilized. So let's learn it using asynchronous Sling jobs. So we know we in AEM we have something called Sling jobs. Using Sling supports asynchronous jobs that can be scheduled and managed independently for the main request processing, and we can use Sling Job Manager to create and execute such jobs. So for example, this is my Sling job. Again, to notice, the annotation I have used is @component, means it's a OSGi component, right? Job consumer service, correct? And this is implementing job consumer interface, right? And of course it is overriding the process method. Now I will do some activities here, any action whatever I want to do using this job, I will do that action. And finally the path of this Sling job would be com.amcommunity.core.slingjobs.sling example job. Now what I will do, I will create a servlet which is a asynchronous one, right? And inside by do get, do post, whatever I want to implement, right? I'll just add this job. So what I have given is the path of that Sling job. This com em the package one, right? This one, and then this one, and the job name, and this is how we just scheduled a job. So this is one way using Sling job. Now next one is Adobe I/O runtime allows you to offload complex or long-running tasks to serverless functions. You can integrate these functions with AEM through HTTP requests. So Sling job we have seen. Using Adobe I/O also we can achieve it. And the third option is using Sling servlets can be utilized to interact with external services asynchronously. This approach is useful when you need to fetch data from external APIs to perform operations that might take time. So we have these options available. Using these options we can handle asynchronous operations in AEM. So let's see this Sling servlet. I have just created a Sling servlet, right? And this is a path-based servlet, but we AEM also support resource-based servlet. So, but just this is just for understanding. Okay, so I have created this servlet. I have used this job manager, right? The same job manager I have used earlier for Sling job also. And what I'm doing is, this is the class which is introduced in I think it was in Java 8, right? Completable future. And here what we can do within this class, we can call the asynchronous API. We're just calling that asynchronous API. So these are the options we have to handle the asynchronous operations in AEM. Again, while I'm showing the technical code or code snippet, I'm just trying to explain it in form of while being in the interview how we are going to handle those questions. So I am not going into the detail of the technical code snippet, but I'm just trying to make you guys understand that if we get such type of questions, how do we handle those questions theoretically as well as with some code explanation. Okay, so next question is, how do you perform testing for AEM components? So whenever we do any of the development, so from where we start, so think in that perspective. So first we do the unit testing. Unit testing can be done via manual testing with the JUnit. We write mocks, etc. We mock the resources and then we do unit testing. That is one thing. After that, once it is complete, it goes for QA environment, etc. We do manual testing. Testing team does that. We also do that as a developer. We do that. Automation testing is also will be done, can be done, or actually should be done. We have different frameworks. One of them is like, for example, Selenium. So whenever we will get this type of question, this question can also be manipulated, that how do we perform integration testing? That is also one question. So again, integration testing means there are different systems which are connected. Maybe when I am doing some registration activities or any activity on my application, there are other systems also involved. My data is being persisted to maybe uh, maybe Salesforce, maybe any down upstream APIs are there. So I'm storing my information, or I'm pulling the data from downstream APIs. So how will I perform that testing? So that question can also be asked, and the answer would be, of course, uh, for local instance, if you have that integration available via any means, then we will enable the debugger. In the service itself, we validate if the data is being pulled or being pushed to the system correctly. And in higher environment, if we have the access to those systems, maybe we can create test data while we perform the testing. And if we do not have the access to those systems, we ask the respective POC. We perform the testing, we ask the respective POC to validate if the data is being persisted or not correctly. And we document also these are the best practices we follow. And this question, though if we have used Sling Servlet, then we already know about it. But sometime from a very initial level career, this question might be asked: what is the use of Sling HTTP Servlet request object in AEM? And it is used to access request specific data in AEM. Whatever request specific data, whether it is request parameters, request attributes, request access, right? So at least these terminology we should know, because otherwise sometimes it is very tricky to answer such type of question if we do not exactly know these keywords. For example, request parameters or resource access. So for example, this one is one of my Sling Servlet. So, and the question is, what are the attributes we can get from request? So if I see I am getting so many information, I will just try the get one. I'm getting the request attribute get, or yeah, the request dispatcher, the request parameter, right? So many things I'm getting, request parameters I'm getting, right? Yeah. Next question is, how do we implement a custom request processor? Now, this question is a little bit tricky. What does that mean, request processor? But I have seen that sometime interviewer asks such type of question which do not make sense properly. But yeah, custom request processes are implemented using servlet or filters. And servlet we already know. Extend these either the Sling safe method servlet, Sling all method servlet, Sling get method servlet, to create custom request handling. Request handling means we get the request and then we do some on top of that request. We try to manipulate the request, and finally we achieve our business logic. Filter, implement the filter interface to process request. The Sling filter, which I have already explained, that one. Explain how to use AEM's request dispatcher API. Request dispatcher is used to forward requests or include content from other resources. So I have the request and I want to forward it to another servlet. It allows you for including or dispatching requests to other servlets or components. So the explanation would be, there will be a forwarding servlet and there will be a targeting servlet. Request dispatcher obtained by calling request.get request to dispatcher. So I'll just get the target one, and attributes. Before forwarding, you can set request attributes using this request.set attribute, and then of course we need to do exception handling. And on target servlet side, we need to do processing, whatever we want to do process, right? Let's see it. So first let's see, we have two servlet, one is forward servlet, one is target servlet, because I am dispatching my request to another servlet. So again, it's a component, and I have used path-based servlet, but that option we can use the resource-based servlet also, that is fine. Okay, this target-based servlet, and what it is doing, anyways, it's extending this class, and then I am getting this request dot get attribute, right? I am getting this attribute from request, and then finally I'm just writing it on the response, right? Simple. Where I have set this attribute, so this is the target sublet, and this is my forward servlet from where I am dispatching this request. Now what I'm doing here is I am dispatching. I'm creating a dispatcher request dot get request dispatcher, and this is my target dispatch servlet, and I'm then setting this attribute, right, which I'm fetching in the targets, and then finally I'm dispatching this forwarding this request to another servlet. So what we have seen, the request is coming to this servlet, but I am forwarding this request to another servlet. But before I do it, I am also setting the attributes. If I want to do any manipulation, I am just doing that manipulation here, and then finally I am dispatching this request to another servlet. Another servlet, which is a target servlet, is just getting this attribute and doing something, and the use case will be uh, maybe one of the use case could be using the same logic for multiple components, right? So I'm having a parent one, and then I'm modifying this request for some modules. That can also be a use case. How do you handle custom error pages in AEM? So creating error pages, define custom error pages in AEM and configure them in the dispatcher.any configuration. Implement custom error handling logic in components or servlets. There are other ways also, advanced configurations, etc. But I think for this type of question it's fine until unless interview goes into detail. Okay, this topic is very interesting and important as well. That is Sling APIs. So I will just start with the very basic. What do we mean by Sling APIs? The Sling APIs are the integral part of Adobe Experience Manager, because if we do the development for any service, component, servlets, etc., we will encounter Sling APIs for sure. They serve the foundation for building and managing web applications within AEM. They provide a set of powerful tools and services for handling HTTP requests, managing content, integrating with other components in AEM. So basically for CRUD operations also we use Sling APIs. What is the purpose of Sling APIs? So these are the main key points we should talk about. Content resolution. So for example, if we want to resolve any resource, Sling resource, etc., that time we use Sling API. Resource management, manage and manipulate content resource, including reading the content, writing, updating, CRUD operation. We use Sling API. Request processing, for if we write any Sling servlet, so that time we use a Sling HTTP request, Sling HTTP response. So we handle all type of HTTP requests, whether it's get, post, put, delete, etc., right? So that processing we do with Sling APIs. If we want to forward the request from one servlet to another servlet or from one component to another one, then we use Sling API. Resource resolution I already discussed. Then we have various integration. If you want to integrate, then we use Sling APIs. And then it provides extensible framework for creating custom request handler resource resolvers. So like I said, if we do the development and we are working on the backend development, for sure we will encounter Sling APIs, because that is the backbone of AEM application. Now let's go into little bit technical, because I have seen in the interview questions, interviewer ask these questions, at least from the developer, technical develop lead, or even architects. They are asked this question. First thing is, what is resource resolver, and then how do we get resource resolver using Sling API? Okay, resource resolver is a bit, with that resolver we will resolve the resources. How do we get the resource resolver? So in previous section, one of the question was we create service user, right? And then with the help of service user we create resource resolver. So I discussed this one, the subservice. So this subservice is mapped to one of the bundle symbolic name, and then the service user. Now that service user should have access to the Java content repository JCR, maybe read access, edit access, delete access, and that is how when we create this resolver, automatically we will have that access programmatically, and we can perform CRUD operation on our resources. So what we do, we create this parameter, it's a map, and then in this map we pass the subservice which we are configuring in the user mapper service, OSGi user mapper service, and this is the name of your subservice which you need to add to user mapper service. And then finally resource resolver will come from this. From resource resolver factory we will get the service resolver name, service resource resolver, by passing this parameter. So this is how we get the resource resolver. I would suggest at least remember this syntax, because if this question is asked, you should explain that we should have a resource resolver factory, we reference it, and then with the help of get resource resolver method we pass the parameter. The parameter is type of map, where the key is the subservice and the value is the subservice name, so that the interviewer will understand, okay, this guy knows about how do we get the resource resolver. Okay, next question is how do we get resource and request handling using Sling APIs. So now we have the resource resolver. Now how can we get the resource? So we have the resource API. Again, these all are Sling APIs. So what we can do, resource is equal to resolver we already received, resolver dot get resource, and we pass the path of the content, right? And this is how we get the resource. Now we have the resource. On top of that resource we can perform this get value map is a method, right? This is also a Sling method, and then we can fetch. Now in this one we have all the properties of that resource, right? Title, description, whatever we have on that resource, we can just fetch those values here. For example, this is my resource, this page path, and this is the resource, and I want to fetch all these properties. This here title, CQ template, etc. All these properties are there, right? So all I need to do is I just need to pass that path here, and then with the help of value map will contain all the properties there in the resource, and then whatever property we want to fetch, dot get property name, and what is the type of that property. So for example, if it is a string type, then string dot class, array type, or etc. that we need to pass, and then finally we will fetch the property. Now next question is how do we handle request using Sling APIs? How do we handle request? So for example, we have written a servlet, so we extend the Sling safe method servlet or Sling all method servlet, right? So here how can we handle the request? We will override this method, do get, do post, etc. whatever is the requirement, and then using this classes, the Sling HTTP request or Sling HTTP response, we will just play around. So this is the answer. This is how we should explain. Okay, how do we forward request using Sling APIs? We just saw that earlier, but again, forward or include the request to other resources or servlet, right? How do we do that? We have this Sling HTTP servlet request and response. So what we will do, with the help of request to dispatcher class, we'll just from the request we get the request to dispatcher, and whatever the target servlet, we'll just pass it, we'll just get that servlet object here, and then we will forward with the help of this dispatcher we will just forward this request to the target servlet. How do we perform dynamic resource resolution using Sling APIs? Sling's resource resolver dynamically maps URL to resources based on the URL structure, and we have previously seen it. Resolve, path, and get resources based on the URL. So for example, I have a path and I have the resolver, so I'll just resolver dot resolve. I will use this method dot resolve, and I will pass the path, so it will automatically resolve this as a resource. So for example, if I want to resolve this path, this content vacant, so here I will pass that path here, and then using the resolver I will resolve that path. and it will become a resource, and with the resource again we can perform any action, any CRUD operation. Next question is, how do we use Sling APIs in Sling model? So anyways, in Sling model we use all the annotations, right? So use annotation, we have a model annotation, value map annotation, all those annotations we use. So basically it's the backbone, all those Sling APIs we use in Sling model. So why I'm explaining all these like in different question, because sometimes we get such a type of questions and they become difficult to answer because we do not know that unknowingly we are using Sling APIs somehow, whether it's a Sling model, Sling Servlet, or or a component, OSGi service component, we are already using those APIs, but we are unaware because we have not seen what is the import. Those are already Sling defined APIs. Okay, how do we update Sling resource using Sling APIs? Updating resource properties using resource resolver. Okay, so we have something called modifiable value map. What we will do, the resource we will first fetch the resource. So for example, we have the resource resolver. First we created the resource resolver. Then with the help of resource resolver, we convert it to resource either to .resolve and passing the path. We just saw that. Now we have the resource. Now what we want to do, we want to maybe update the property. Okay, maybe JCR title, I want to change the JCR title. What I will do, first I will adapt it to modifiable value map, right? So I have all the properties inside this value map now, and then we have a method called .put, value map .put the property name, and whatever is we want to put, we just change, we can put here. And then we need to finally commit the resolver, the resource resolver we need to commit, then only it will change, it will persist the data. If we don't do it, then that value will not be saved. Similar to that, we just saw how can we persist the data. The question could be, how do we access properties using Sling APIs? It means this time I want to get the property value, so I already have the value map. I will just from the resource .get value map, this I can do, right? Because this time I do not want to modify the value, so I have not used the modifiable value map. And then I want to extract the value map .get what is the property value, JCR title, and what is the type of that property, string type. This is how we can fetch the value. And most of the time while development, at least I have noticed in the code review that we do not check null for null, etc. Wherever it is applicable, any object and we want to perform any action on top of that, whether we are trying to get something from that object, it is always good at least to have null check before we do any action item to avoid null pointer exception. Next question is, what are the best practices for creating AEM components? Okay, reusable components. So wherever it is applicable, please reuse the existing component, or if needed, any changes needed, then create an overlay of this component, then do whatever changes you want to do. Do not create a fresh new with the duplicate code. Design components to be reusable across different pages and templates. That is one thing. Use Sling models. Utilize Sling models for data binding and separation of concerns. Handle error gracefully. Implement error handling and logging within components. Most of the time I have seen that we use exception, try catch exception, error occurred, etc. That is very bad. Do not eat the exception. Handle it, and use specific exception when we are catching, and follow naming convention. Use consistent naming convention for components, dialogues, and styles. Most of the time we use even numeric values, component -1, component -2. I mean, believe me, I have seen that as well, right? Sometimes we copy paste the components from one place to another place to create a new component. We don't change the description, still having extra fields. We do that, so that is not correct, right? Wherever possible, if you are writing, of course you are writing HTML, and if there is a duplicate code, to avoid the duplicate code. Use templates within HTML. Okay. Explain how AEM handles user authentication and authorization. So authoring side we already know. I mean, we create user roles, group, permission. That is how an author, editor, developer, we access the environment. We have the based on roles. If it is a read access, write access, edit access, replicate access, all those access, we perform our job, our roles, right? User management, manage user and group through the user admin interface. That is first point for author. Permissions, set permissions using ACLs to control access to content and feature. And authentication, integrate with single sign-on system for user authentication. This is just the summary, but I would suggest please read in detail what is authentication, how can we use this single sign-on integration, SAML, etc. I have videos in the playlist. Please check those videos to have better understanding. The next question is, how do you handle content migration in AEM? So first let's understand what is content migration. Content migration means there are two ways. Okay, we have whenever we do the development, right? So for example, we have dev environment, QA environment, and production environment, staging environment, so many environments, right? Migration means it can be maybe you are migrating your content from lower environment, say for example from dev environment to staging environment, pre-production environment. That is also a migration, content migration. Migrating, I mean, it's just we are migrating our pages, assets to another environment. Another migration could be maybe we are using a previous version of AEM and now we are migrating to a new version of AEM. That is also a migration. Migration also means that maybe right now we are using another CMS, right? And we got a new project requirement where we are creating a new website or new revamp of this website in AEM, and now we want to migrate this existing content which is in another CMS to AEM. So that is also migration. Now based on a requirement, what kind of migration it is, we decide that which migration way of migration we should choose. But just here I'm just trying to explain that there are multiple ways. One way is package manager. So for example, if you want to migrate it from dev environment to staging environment, we can just create package, go to package manager, create a package, and then deploy this package, install it on wherever we want. So for example, this is my package manager, localhost colon for 502 crx pack mgr index.jsp. I'll create a package. I'll just give some name. This is my test package, and the group, that is fine. It's my local environment, and I can edit it. I can add filter to it. Filters are nothing but the content which we want to migrate. So I want to maybe migrate the US website. I'll just add this, save it. We'll build this. Once the build is complete, I can download this package, right? And then on another environment, I can just install this package. Just consider that this is a new environment where I want to upload this, so I can just click on upload. I want to force upload. This is how I can upload it. Okay, that is one thing. So like I said, if we are migrating our content from lower environment to higher environment, we can use this feature, package manager feature. Custom script is where we want to migrate it from maybe another CMS to new CMS. So what we do, we write custom scripts to migrate content programmatically. What we'll do, we'll create a mapping first. So for example, in my previous CMS, the hierarchy is, first there is a home page, then there is a product detail page, and then product detail page is having some properties to it, right? This is the structure. And in my new content hierarchy, the structure is same. What I will do, first I will create the component, I will write a script so that there is a mapping between this node and another node, and then I'll use the Sling APIs which I just described earlier to first fetch the information maybe I will just download, extract this information. Actually it depends. Maybe the existing CMS, maybe it supports you can just extract the whole data in CSV, right? So we'll just then our source will be that CSV file where we will have all those information, home, product detail, respective metadata, right? And then considering that CSV file as an input, I will create that script where I will have that mapping. I will fetch the value from CSV file. I will use the Sling API, modifiable value map, etc. Sling resource resolver, all those things. Create the OSGi service. Then finally, it will create those nodes inside my GCR repository. So this is how it will be done. So if someone is asking this question, first answer that within the environment, within AEM environment, we can use package manager. But if it is different CMS, then we need to write custom scripts, and there may be other areas as well. For example, content fragments can be used, HTML files can be used. We will create functional components before we write the migration script, etc. What is the role of the content package in AEM? And we just saw when we just created a content package. So content packages are used for packaging and deploying content and configuration. They facilitate content migration. We just saw how we used it for migration and deployment across different AEM environments. So when we are saying different AEM environments, for example, dev, QA environment, staging environment. So we are playing within AEM environment. We created package from one environment and now we are deploying, installing it on other environment. Okay, how do we troubleshoot performance issues in AEM? Performance issues are what? My website is not performing well, it is lagging, it is loading, response time is low, and when I'm hitting on any of the form, that API itself in network tab, it is taking too much time, right? When I'm refreshing the page, it is taking time to load the whole content on the page. Those are performance issues, right? How do we troubleshoot? And there are multiple ways, many ways. Endless list can be created, but I have just put 3 or 4 points. First thing is we need to monitor logs, check logs for error and performance related messages, analyze request, use tools like Adobe Cloud Manager to analyze request performance, or there are other ways as well. So for example, within your HTML file, if you have any dynamic APIs, so for example, you have some form submission, registration form submission, login form submission, right? Or any third party API you are calling from front end, what you will do? You will go to that page, you will open the network console, right? Go to the network tab and then refresh or do that activity. If it is a form submission or page load, do that and then search for your API call, right? And see what is the time it is taking. Is it beyond the defined SLA? If it is beyond that threshold timeline, then check why it is behaving like that. If it is a third-party service, then check with third-party system why they are checking, why this API is taking too much time, right? So that kind of analysis we need to do, correct? And then optimize query, review and optimize GCR queries for efficiency. So sometimes what happens, we have search enabled in our website, but we have not created indexes for those properties. And what is happening anytime when we are searching, it is actually the whole GCR content we are searching through. So that is the problem. So that also we need to make sure, or what type of queries we have written. Are those queries optimized? Our content is not properly structured. So that is also one thing we need to see. Are there any duplicate assets, etc.? And because of that, the repository size is huge. Okay, or performance issues can also be monitored through Lighthouse report. Lighthouse report is I think it's a Chrome extension, right? So on the front end itself, just using this extension, refresh your page, it will give you a nice report. See which API is taking too much time. They have their defined SLAs, like within this time, if your API is your page load, etc. is working fine, then you are good. Or there can be another performance issues related to image. Maybe the image what you have used on your application is of higher in size. I have seen people have used images like 25 MB one image on one single page. Okay, so compressed images we should use. So those type of things we should do for troubleshooting. Another example is when we write this client library, those are not minified, the JS is not minified, the CSS is not minified, right? The whole CSS and JS is loading, and believe me, even the keybs, right, in kilobytes when it is increasing, so it impacts the performance of your website. So those things we should check when we do the performance troubleshoot. Okay, next question is explain style system in AEM. And this is a beautiful thing which is introduced in AEM. The style system in Adobe Experience Manager is a framework designed to provide a consistent way to manage the appearance of component across the site. It allows authors to apply predefined styles to components. So we'll define the style for a particular component, more than one style, and then author will select one of the style. And why it is needed? So for example, my requirement is there are different variations of a component. Different variations means sometimes this component should be left aligned, right aligned. The text inside this component should be of particular font, or the theme should be different. There can be multiple various use cases. I just don't want to create different components for it. Rather than I will use the style system, so that I will just have one variation of the component, and author can select one of the style, and on basis of that style my code is written in HTML, right, and one of the style will be picked, right? It allows authors to apply predefined styles to components without needing to write custom CSS or HTML. This system helps in maintaining a consistent look and feel across pages and ensures that style changes can be managed centrally. Now, what are the advantages of style system in AEM? So one thing is consistency. It ensures uniform appearance and behavior for components throughout the site. Flexibility, of course, authors can apply or change styles via the AEM authoring interface without developers intervention. So one time it's just one time code is written, now developers can play around. Efficiency, reduce the need for custom styling and speed up development by using predefined style options. And of course the maintainability, styles are managed centrally, making updates easier to apply and less error prone. Now next question is, how do we enable style option for a component? So this is a little bit theory, but let me show you in the demo also how can we enable it. So in the component HTML file, we will use all these blocks, data SLY, use, test, etc. And of course, because for different conditions we need to apply different styles, right? And configure style option in the components dialog. Ensure the style options are exposed to authors. This can be done by adding a select field. And then finally style mapping, ensure that components CSS is mapped to the styles defined in the design dialog. Otherwise, how will come that CSS design will come into picture when author is going to select one of the design. Now let's see the demo. So what I was saying, that it is components style, right? So let me open this page. I'll edit this page and let me take previous components example. This is I think this is title component if I'm not wrong. Yeah, this is the title component, and here if I select this, let me close this, this is not needed, and let me break the inheritance, and here if we select this one, this color pencil icon, this says style. Let me select it, and in the drop down I am getting so many options. One is underline, align right, mini spacing, black, white, so many. Let me try. So for example, if I do underline, it has become underline, right? There is a yellow color underline. If I select align right, it is aligned right. If it is black is already there. White, it has become white, etc. So many things are happening, and I'm not changing any code. It's just from author will just change this, and this is happening on the go. So this is the beauty of style system. Correct. Now how it is happening? So first thing is, I will just go to the template of this page, right? Let me go to the template, edit template, and in the template structure I will see the allowed components, and this is the component which I am just trying. In the component, if we hover over this setting icon, this is a policy icon. So click on this policy icon, right? And this policy icon, that one of the tab is styles, and here we can see whatever we were seeing over there. So for example, we're seeing underline, align right, mini spacing, etc, etc. All options are coming here: underline, align right, mini spacing. What is happening when we select one of these styles? We add one of these class. So this one class is CMP title underline, CMP title right, CMP title mini. Now what happens when we select one of these type, one of these class is getting applied, and we already have written CSS for this, and that's why that CSS is impacting the website, I mean that component. So this is how it is happening. So in nutshell, what we have done, we have configured this, right? And in the HTML we have handled this if else condition, right? And in the CSS also we have written classes, these classes, right? Okay, the next question is, what are version client libraries or client libs? So version client libs are a mechanism in AEM to manage client-side libraries in different versions. Okay, we'll see it, what is that. And they are used to control and serve different versions of client libraries to ensure that users receive the appropriate version for their context, and helping in managing cache and versioning issue. Okay, what used to happen, my library is for example some url.abc.css, and it is serving the purpose, there is no issue at all, and some change happen, I changed some styling, some CSS is changed, but still it is taking, when the user is loading the HTML page, it is taking from the cache, and that recent change is not reflecting. So how did this issue got fixed? That instead of this URL, which is my.css, we'll just append some hash code to it. Some code, extra code will be added, so that every time this code will change, so that previously generated client library will not be served, because this time the hash code is different. Okay, with this example it will really make more sense. So for example, this is my style sheet, whereas I have the link to my style sheet, and the URL is href is equal to etc client lib etc, and this I have taken from the Adobe documentation. I am referring Adobe documentation, and this is the path of my CSS. Okay, and now this is cached, and I'm still hitting the same CSS, and that's why I am getting the previous I'm not getting the recent update. So now with version, what will happen, instead of this I'm getting this extra code also. Okay, this is this version, and this will change, right? So with this extra code, this will be considered as new client lib CSS.js, and that is how it will solve the purpose. Now whenever we are asked this question, how do we implement version client lib in AEM? So there are two ways. One is the on-premise way, and we used to use this ACS AEM Commons version client lib. There is a documentation for it, how do we create this type of version. For cloud, there is a different way to be true. I mean, though this ACS AEM Commons also supports it as per their documentation, but if we read this Adobe documentation, what it says, when it is called strict client lib versioning. So the concept is not only version client lib, but it is called strict client lib versioning. And when it is not enabled, then it will look like this, and when it is enabled, it will look like this. And if I'm not wrong, it is enabled by default, somewhere it was written, yes, strict client lib versioning is enabled by default in all AEM Cloud service environment. So remember, when this question is asked that how do we enable the versioning in AEM, please respond if it is cloud environment or the on-premise environment. If it is on-premise environment, we can use ACS AEM Commons version client lib, that utility we can use. If it is a AEM Cloud environment, this is called strict client lib versioning, and it is all automatically by the default it is enabled. Now, what are the benefits of version client lib? Of course, now we know version control allows specific version of client libraries to be served based on the application needs. Cache management helps in managing cache invalidation by ensuring that old versions of files are not served when a new version is deployed. Explain editable template. Editable templates we know now. Editable template provides a more flexible and user-friendly way to design and configure pages. They allow authors to create and manage templates directly in the AEM authoring interface, providing a dynamic and efficient way to control page layout and content structure. And just for the sake of flow, I want to show it again. So I am on my AEM author instance. I'll go to tools, click on general, scroll down, click on templates, and here we will have all the templates. This is the template I created in this video itself, and in this template we can define the structure, the layout, the initial content, etc. We can define the component, right? So this is how we can do it. Now, what are the advantages of editable template? Simple, flexibility. Authors can configure the layout and content structure directly without needing to rely on developers for every change. So what used to happen earlier, when we used to have had this static template, if there is even a small change in the layout, right, that change will go to development team. They will change the that JSP file, right, to have those changes, and then the deployment will happen, and then it will come for authoring. So many time consuming effort as well. Reusability, templates can be reused and adjusted as needed for different parts of the site. Now this question can also be asked, where do the configurations get stored of editable templates? So when we create the editable template, the configurations, where are they getting stored? Under apps or somewhere else? The configuration for editable templates are stored in the JCR repository, of course, but under the conf folder. Specifically, the policies are typically stored. Not only policies, but all the configurations related to templates will be stored under conf, your project website name, and the settings. Let me show you. So what I can do, I can just say the conf, and this is my weekend website setting. And if we go back to the previous template, what it says, where it is stored. So it is inside conf demo conf. This I created templates, new editable template. So if I see this only, conf demo, this is, then settings, and under setting I have everything. So for example, any cloud configuration or any policies. If I create any policies will be created here, right? So I must have used title component here. If we see this title component, right? So if this component's title, policies, whatever policies I will have here will be reflecting here, right? And the template type of this component, right? The template, with template, anything, the initial content here. So for example, if I cancel it, if I define any initial content here, that will be stored over there. If I define any structure or layout related changes, that will also get stored under structure, right? So this is how we store the configuration of a template, and it is inside conf folder. Next question is, what are blueprints? Blueprints in AEM are used to create a common starting point for pages or content fragments. They provide a way to define a standard set of configurations, components, and settings that can be used to ensure consistency across different pages or pieces of content. Okay, next question is, this is very popular. Recent content updates are not reflecting. How to troubleshoot the issue? So when changes are not reflecting in AEM, follow below steps, and there can be many, but yeah, these are like very common. Clear browser cache and AEM dispatcher cache to ensure that old version of assets are not being served. Ensure the dispatcher is properly configured and that caching rules are correctly set up. And also when this question is asked, always ask, are we facing the same issue on higher environment also, or it is just happening on lower environment? That is first question, please ask. Second question we can ask is, do we have the same code configuration content on other environments also, if we are not facing this issue on other environment? Third question is, if it is on cloud or even on premise, do we have the same version of AEM instance? Maybe it's because of some recent update happened on lower environment, but the same update, maintenance, release, etc. has not yet moved to published environment, right? Is it controlled environment? I mean, controlled environment means after approval only this code is flowing to this environment, not a dev environment, or maybe someone has just pushed a buggy code, right? So ask these questions. This will ensure, basically, when you are digging through all these questions, interviewer will also assume that you have that mindset to to digger deep into the detail, asking why and why, and it will have a good impression. Okay, ensure the dispatch. This one is done. Confirm that the code or content changes have been properly deployed to the appropriate environment. Check AEM error logs and server logs for any error or warning that might indicate issues. Not only these logs, but open that website, open the developer console, refresh the page, see if you are getting any console level error, right? Verify that the component configuration and dialog are correctly set up and that any style or template setting are properly applied. Use browser developer tool to inspect network request and response to check if the correct resources are being loaded. And also check the environment. Sometimes what happens, we are in so much hurry, we have different environments, dev environment, QA environment, right? We are changing the content on dev environment and refreshing the page of QA environment and see and asking this question, why this change is not this recent content update is not getting impacted, why it is not reflecting on my website. The environment is totally different. So please make sure, I mean, you are using the right environment. Okay, how can we create project specific logs? So to create project specific logs in AEM, define logger, set the appropriate log level, and this is I'm just giving summary. We know debug, info, error log level. Implement logging statements in your code wherever necessary to capture relevant information. For example, info logs, maybe starting, ending of your method, the functions, right? The Java methods what you have. Debug wherever applicable. Error logs, maybe at least in the error, in the try, in the catch statement, if we get any error, use them. Use AEM's logging console or external log monitoring tools. So we have external log monitoring tools available as well, right, to analyze the logs. This is what we should do. Okay, this question, how can we pass variables from HTL to Sling model? So how can we pass Sling model? So define a Sling model in Java and then access it. We have already seen it, value map. If it is a resource type, adaptable you have used in the Sling model, just use the resolver, just use the value map to get the properties, right? Very common question. It is asked almost in every developer question interview. How many ways we can register a single servlet? And the answer is there are two ways: path based servlet, resource based servlet. And another follow-up question could be, which one is recommended? So resource based servlet, and there was a typo here, I just fixed it. Link resource based servlets are recommended. So let's quickly see the syntax. Believe me, interviewers ask this question also. Can you tell me the code snippet? How do we register a path-based servlet? So it is always better to have that in your mind when you go for interview. Path-based servlet. So this is my servlet. This is OSGi component, and sling.servlet.path is equal to the path of the servlet. Simple. So within the @component annotation, you pass so many properties. One of the property is sling.servlet.paths, sling.servlet.paths, and the path of the servlet. That's it. I do not ask the such type of questions, but people still ask. So that's it. How do we register a resource based Sling servlet? Simple. There we have sling.servlet.path. Here we have sling.servlet.resource, I think, but I have used servlet resource constant. It's a class which provides me this constant and just the path of your component. This is my component. So under apps, I have created this component under my project. So I just need to give the path of the component, and that's why it's resource, by the way. Resource based way, your component path will be there. The next question is explain various annotations used in Sling model. So we have already gone through all those annotations we used in the Sling model. So what we can do, we can just first start explaining that we have, these are the main ones: @model, @inject, @value map, @value map value, @self, @reference. There's so many, right? And then if you think that your interviewer is still interested to more know about them, so start from the very basics one, which are like amended to have @model. It defines the Sling model. @value map, it does to get the values, right? And what @inject. So this is how we should explain them then one by one for each annotation. If you're not sure about any of the annotation, and that anyways that is least used ones, do not mention, no need to mention all annotations anyways. Okay, next question is how to read page properties in the Sling model. And by the way, if your Sling model is, and you can adapt a Sling model to a request type of resource type, and if it is resource type, we can just, we have already seen it, right? It's a resource type. First we have the resource, it means we will get the value map. We have the value map, and now we know value map is like all properties we have, so it's from value map dot get property name, property type, and this is how we will get it. It's very simple. Theoretical question: what are the differences between OSGi and R6 annotations? OSGi annotations are used for defining OSGi components and services in AEM, that we know, and they are part of the older OSGi specification. Okay, so these annotations are older. R6 annotations refer to the specification from OSGi release 6. Okay, it is always better to have these keywords. It gives always a good impression, which introduced a more standardized approach for dependency injection and service registration. Next question is how do we create custom OSGi configuration? Very simple. Create a component. First we'll create a OSGi component and we will annotate it with @designate annotation and @object class definition annotation to define the configuration properties, and finally we will implement the configuration interface in a service class. Let's see it. So this example where what I have is, it's a component, right? It's a component, and inside my component I have this service, and I have used this @designate annotation, and my object class definition, that is OCD, is demo sample service.config. See something which is very unique here. I have defined the same class, which is this class, as OCD. So that is also possible, that is doable, right? So that means here itself in this class I have a config class where I have defined the OCD. So if I go here, I have created that interface here itself where I have the object class definition. So my object class definition is, it's my sample configuration. So I can have a separate interface also, that is also doable, that is also fine. Let me just control minus, yeah, this is my, okay, yeah, and this is my property, right? This is my property, type of string, default value will go as my value, and then name, attribute, definition. What is the definition of this property? Name is my property, some description, and type is string, right? And in the service, how I am activating this, like this, right? And finally I am getting the property. Okay, now if I want to deploy it on multiple environment and the property value should be different, all I need to do is I need to create a configuration file, the XML file, and the path of that XML file will be exact same, com.amcommunity.core.service.impl.demo sample service.xml, right? And then here I can define the property and the property value. So for example, if I want to deploy it on production environment, maybe this property value is different, on dev environment this value is different, and so on. So I can control it. So that is the whole purpose of using OSGi configuration, because the value of that property is different on each environment. So I'll create multiple configuration for various environment, and this will be deployed when the code goes to that environment. Next question, we have already seen it, but what are bundles? Bundle is jar file with the specific metadata that defines its content and capabilities, and it can be a library, an application, or a component. Key components of a bundle will be meta-inf. Inside meta-inf we will have a manifest.mf file. It contains the metadata about that bundle, symbolic name, version, dependency, etc., everything. And next question is, what is the life cycle of a bundle? And the life cycle will be installed, resolved, started, stopped, installed. So installed is the bundle is loaded into the OSGi framework, right? You just selected the bundle. Resolved, the OSGi framework resolves the bundle dependencies. Started, the bundle is started and its components are activated. Stopped, the bundle is stopped now and its components are deactivated. Uninstalled, the bundle is removed from OSGi framework. And one thing I just added, active also, the bundle is in active state. That is the when it is can be used now. So these are the life cycle of a bundle. Okay, how to resolve bundle dependencies? Check manifest file. Ensure that the manifest MF file in your bundle correctly specifies the required dependencies in the import package or required bundle header. So here we can see I have opened the manifest MF file, import packages. What packages I want to import? com.adobe.ck.dam.cfm. What is the version of that dependency? Everything I have added in the import package, and required capability also, right? And use OSGi console. Use the OSGi console to check the bundle status and dependencies. I can go to the OSGi console, bundles, this part, and I can see all the bundles here with their status. And if they are not active, we can go inside the bundle and can check what is not working. Maybe any of the dependencies not fulfilled, is not satisfied. We can check. This is how we debug, and that is how we check for missing dependencies over the console. Verify that all required bundles are installed and active in the OSGi container. Update bundle if necessary. Update the bundle or its dependencies to ensure the compatibility. Now, what are the major difficulties while migrating from AEM 6. any version to Adobe Experience Manager Cloud Service? Component compatibility. Ensuring that custom components and configurations are compatible with the new Adobe Experience Cloud Service environment. Performance optimization. Adjusting to the new architecture and ensuring that performance is optimized in the cloud environment. Data migration. Migrating content and configuration from on-premise AEM to the cloud, which might involve data transformation and validation. Configuration changes. Adapting configuration and setups that were specific to on-premise deployment to the cloud environment. Also, there is a tool provided by Adobe, and that is called Best Practices Analyzer. We also call it as BPA, and what it does, it provides an assessment of your current AEM implementation by indicating areas that are not following AEM best practices. It also provides guidance on next step to adopt AEM best practices. It helps accelerate the process of assessing readiness to move from an existing AEM to deployment to AEM as cloud service. With the BPA report, after we run that best practice analyzer, we get the report that also gives us a nice report to see if we are ready to migrate from any from AEM 6.5 on-premise environment to the cloud instance. Explain experience fragment and different use cases. So first let's understand the experience fragments. Experience fragments are reusable group of content and components that can be used across multiple channels and pages. They represent a complete user experience or a part of it. And use cases are consistency, ensure a consistent look and feel across different pages, and efficiency, reuse common section of content such as banner or call to action. So for example, within a page you have some section, okay, you have a website and a page, and you have one section, and you know that section will come multiple time on your website. Okay, so instead of that you configure that same section again and again, you will create that as experience fragment. Basically fragment is part the part of the page, and then the same same fragment you will use multiple places. That is experience fragment. Now, so again I'm back on my author instance, and on the home page itself we have this section experience fragment. If we click over here, and maybe here I will create another experience fragment. So this is the template I have, the experience fragment template. I'll select it and I will just give some title to it, experience fragment demo, right? Let's create it, let's open it, and now I can design this component. Right, this is a fragment of the page, so I can define maybe an image here, right? And this is, so I'll just drag and drop this image here. So I have created this, and maybe I'll type some text also. Text, I'll write some text here. This is experience fragment demo, right? I have created. Now this experience fragment is created. The good part is once it is created, I can reuse it as many times as I want, and I can create even variations of same experience fragment. So for example, this is one variation. I can create variation, another variation of it. So I just need to give template, title, etc. But it's okay. Let's understand how do we use it. So if I go back, and then on the site, right, maybe I'll go to my favorite about us page. Is that about us page, by the way? Yeah, here it is. So if I just edit it, and now here I will just search for experience fragment component, and here I can just edit this experience fragment, which is this path. Copy, paste it. So I just used that fragment here, and similar to that, as many pages I want, I can just use the whole section. So this is what is experience fragment. And notice one thing we notice here, experience fragment is also kind of page only, because I can drag components to it, I can design it, and then I can use that subsection of that page, right? So that is one thing. Now the next question is explain content fragment and different use cases. So earlier we studied experience fragment. Now content fragment. Content fragments are reusable piece of content that are independent of their presentation, means look and feel, independent of look and feel, just kind of text. They can be used across different pages or channels, but do not include layout or design information. And use cases would be content management, manage and reuse text, images or other content elements without worrying about the layout. Multi-channel publishing, publish the same content across different channels with different layouts. And one thing to understand whenever we will talk about headless approach of AEM, that we want to expose our content to any other system, like for example React based application, and I want to expose my AEM data to the React application so that they can consume the data. So there I will use content fragment, because I can create the content fragments, and then there are APIs available. Through those APIs I can expose that data as form of JSON report. I mean, I can expose that data as JSON. Now to create content fragment, it's very simple. Content fragments are considered as assets. So go to assets, files, and go to that content fragment folder what you have created. I just explained in the same video. I will create the configuration folder first, and then create another content fragment model. And using content fragment model, we can create content fragments. Like I am just doing that, and this is my second CF content fragment. I'll create it, and I can just configure this content fragment. I have this and this field. I can save this information, right? And here also I can create variations, by the way. And once it is done, I can close this data. The next question is, what is the role of the AEM cloud service architecture in ensuring high availability and reliability? So to be true, when we are saying AEM cloud service, it means we are already on cloud. It means all the cloud features are already in place. Auto scaling, load balancing, disaster recovery, all those features are there. So that is what we need to provide the answer. The architecture is designed with high availability and reliability in mind by leveraging cloud native features. So these are all cloud native features. That's why by default this question will have the same answer. Redundancy, multiple instances and data replication across region ensure that service remain available even if one instance fails. That is one thing. Auto scaling, automatically adjust resources based on demand, preventing bottlenecks and ensuring consistent performance. Load balancing distributes traffic evenly across multiple servers to avoid overloading any single server. And disaster recovery includes mechanisms for automated backups and recovery to quickly restore services in case of major disruptions. How does AEM Cloud Service handle multi-site and multi-region deployment? Okay, so when multi-site come, we always think of MSM, multi-site management features. So that we can add here. That will create a language master. We will have language copies. That way we will handle it. And that's common for on-premise as well as cloud. But this question, since it's specific to cloud, so we can add these 2 points as well. One is global distribution. It utilizes Adobe's global cloud infrastructure to deploy content across multiple regions, improve performance and accessibility. And localized caching employs edge caching to serve content from the nearest geographic location, enhancing load time and user experience. And this edge caching, right, the concept is, if your users are of Europe region, your content is also deployed to your Europe region, so that once that content is accessed, that request is coming, rather than it is going to some another region, a PAC region or something, because the user is of Europe, the response will be served from Europe. That is how there will be no latency, and it will be a quick solution, quick response time. How does AEM Cloud Service supports continuous integration and continuous delivery, CICD? Cloud Manager is the answer to be true of this question. Cloud Manager provides tools for automating build, test, and deployment pipelines, ensuring that code changes are integrated and delivered efficiently. Integrates with testing frameworks to automatically run tests on code changes and ensuring quality before deployment. So what happens whenever you push your code changes to the environment, there are tests running, the code coverage, etc., quality gates, etc., those are happening. And if there is any issue related to even code quality, your build will fail. So that is there. And the deployment automation automates the deployment of code and content updates to various environments. reducing manual intervention and improving the release cycle. So these all features are there in Cloud Manager. By the way, not necessarily, but for EM developer and this lead role assistant interview, but it is always good if before interview you read some documentation related to Cloud Manager as well, though it's related to DevOps team, but it is always good to learn about Cloud Manager before you go for interview. How does AEM Cloud Service handle content replication and synchronization between author and publish instance? And the answer is Sling content distribution, and I have created a few videos for that. Please watch those videos and explain the concept of this Sling content distribution for this question. What are the common pitfalls to avoid during AEM Cloud Service implementation and migration? So basically the question is what might be the issues, right? Inadequate planning, and this is not only related to cloud service implementation, but most of the projects, whether those are related to AEM or any CMS, the planning is very crucial for any project. What happens, we do not plan the project because of maybe we want to run the bid, etc. There is no planning happening, and then we just kick off the project, and then we later on we face the issues. So inadequate planning, failing to thoroughly plan and assess the existing environment and requirements can lead to migration issues. So for example, now we have a requirement that there is a website which we need to migrate from existing system to AEM. If this existing system is any other CMS, consider Teamsite, SharePoint, or any other CMS, and we need to migrate this website to AEM. Now when the requirement gathering session is happening, I mean we are trying to understand the requirement from client, we are asking the questions, but the proper requirement is not coming to us, and we are not even asking the question. So for example, we are not asking what is the current website, how many pages we have, what are the assets we have, how many integrations we have in the existing system, if there is any metadata which is in some RDBMS or somewhere else, what is the requirement, what is the scope of this project, do we just need to create the website, or migration of these pages are also in scope, right? How we are planning this migration if it is in scope, are we going to for example, in existing website we have 10,000 pages, are we planning to migrate all those 10,000 pages, or there will be agency or some third-party vendor who are going to create the pages manually once the component development is complete, right? If there is any metadata, how we are going to extract that information from that metadata, and very important question which we always miss. So for example, the website is in SharePoint and we want to migrate it to AEM. There is no AEM connector now with cloud, etc. And we have not even gone to the latest Adobe documentation. We know that in previous version it was available, but now we are not sure, but we still, with some assumption, we consider, okay, yeah, that might be possible. So it is always good when we commit or we do that analysis to go with the latest release, latest AEM documentation, or even ask the Adobe support team to reconfirm what is feasible or what is not feasible, or what is out of the box available in the product, and what extra you need to do either through script or you need to write some logic for it. So that all things what I have just told comes under planning. So, and that is very crucial. The second part is best practices. We ignore the best practices. The not adhering to AEM best practices for content modeling, architecture and performance can result in suboptimal implementation. And the example is one of the best practice, for example, naming convention for SEO, right? Or maybe offloading your application server load to someone else. When we architect any solution, we also need to think of can we improve the performance or website? Is there a way we can still do something? So all those questions, right? We need to think, we need to consult, and then only decide. Underestimating testing needs. This for sure happens. Development is like big brother, and the testing is like, okay, it's okay. I mean, after the development is complete, testing will be done eventually. So that Usually we follow that trend, and that's very bad. So insufficient testing can lead to issues in production, and ensure throughout testing of functionality, performance and integration wherever possible have automation in scope. So that scope also we should add. Neglecting training, not providing adequate training for users can hinder adoption and effective use of the platform. Usually what happens sometime, the content authoring, we create skeleton of the initial level of project, we do that setup, and then business people will say, okay, we will do the rest of the content authoring, and we do not create the authoring guide because that was never estimated in the project plan. And because of that, now business is not aware how do they configure the pages. They come back, they ask questions again, right? And it also gives wrong impression to your team, to your organization, right? So that is also part of to be do a planning, that we will create proper authoring guide. There will be a documentation where we are going to put every aspect of usage of component or template or whatever functionality services we are going to create. What are the key differences between AEM sites on-premise or managed, or AEM sites as cloud service? And I'm just going to talk about few of them. So for example, first is deployment model. Typically, the AEM sites managed service typically hosted on Adobe's infrastructure with managed updates and support, but not fully cloud native. Whereas AEM sites as cloud service, fully cloud native, built on Adobe's cloud infrastructure with features like auto scaling, automatic update, and high availability. That is one point. Deployment model. Scalability. Managed services offer some scalability but may require manual intervention or configuration, whereas cloud service provides automatic scaling based on traffic and demand, reducing manual intervention. Infrastructure management. In AEM sites managed service, Adobe manages that infrastructure, and organizations have some control over configurations. Whereas in cloud service, Adobe handles all aspects of infrastructure management, including scaling and updates. So no headache at all. Maintenance and upgrades. In managed service, regular updates are provided, but the timing and process may involve more planning and coordination. Whereas in cloud service, feature continuous integration and delivery with automatic updates and patches applied without user intervention. So of course, security patches will be there automatically in your infra. So that is good. How does AEM sites as cloud service handle content replication? AEM sites as cloud service utilizes a cloud native approach for content replication. So cloud-based replication, content replication is managed through Adobe's cloud infrastructure, ensuring high availability and performance. Real-time replication, content changes are propagated in real time or near real time to ensure that all instances reflect the latest updates. And optimized for cloud, the system is designed to handle large volume of content and high traffic with built-in mechanism for efficient data replication and distribution. Now we have already discussed this topic earlier, but just for the sake of this question might be asked, what are the key benefits of using AEM sites as cloud service over traditional on-premise? It's simple. Now we know all the cloud features are coming. So scalability, automatically scales resources based on traffic demands. Automatic updates, receive continuous updates and enhancements, ensuring the latest features and security patches are always applied. High availability, benefits from Adobe's cloud infrastructure providing high availability and disaster recovery capabilities. Reduced infrastructure management, offloads the responsibility of managing server and infrastructure to Adobe, allowing organizations to focus on content and user experience. Improve performance, utilizes Adobe's global cloud infrastructure to deliver faster and more reliable to users around the world. Explain how AEM sites as cloud service handles security and compliance. There are compliance, various compliance standards around the globe, GDPR, CCPA, etc. Right? So, and security aspects also. Security, cloud native security leverages Adobe's cloud security framework, including encryption, secure access controls, regular security updates. That is important. Data encryption ensures data is encrypted both in transit and at rest, complying with industry standards and regulations. Access controls, implement fine-grained access controls and identity management to secure user access and permissions. Compliance, regulatory compliance, adheres to various compliance standards such as GDPR, CCPA and other based on Adobe's cloud infrastructure certifications. Audit and reporting, provides tools for auditing and reporting to help organizations meet their compliance requirements. This is little bit theory, but I would suggest this such type of question might come. So maybe just memorize little bit keywords that it will help in building that the whole castle when you are answering this question. What are the best practices for migrating from on-premise to cloud service? So we already discussed, but I want to summarize it. This question is assessment and planning. First, we need to do assessment and planning conducted throughout assessment of existing content, customizations and integrations. Develop a migration plan that includes timelines and resource allocation. Content audit. Review and clean up content to ensure that only relevant and high quality content is migrated. Customization review. Evaluate custom code and configuration to ensure compatibility with AEM Sites Cloud Service. Refactor or update as needed. And also use that BPA, the best practice analyzer tool. Testing, perform extensive testing during migration to ensure that all functionalities work correctly in the new environment. Training and support, provide training for users on new features and workflows in AEM Sites Cloud Service. Offer support during and after the migration. What is the role of Cloud Manager in AEM Sites Cloud Service? Now we know the answer. Deployment automation. Cloud Manager automates the deployment of code and content. Environment management, manages various environments, for example development, staging and production with the tools for configuration and monitoring. Performance monitoring, provides insights into the application performance including metrics and logs to help optimize and troubleshoot the environment. Governance and compliance, ensure that deployment adhere to best practices and compliance requirements, offering automated checks and reporting. Now few questions related to site leak or HTL, now we call it HTL, of course might come. So first question is what is HTL and of course why it is used in AEM. HTL stands for HTML template language, is a templating language designed for use with AEM. It is used to create dynamic content in a secure and performant way. HTL separates logic from presentation, making template easier to read and maintain compared to older technologies like JSP. Okay, what are the main features of HTL? Separation of logic and presentation, enhanced security by preventing direct script access, simplified syntax for data binding and component reuse, automatic escaping of output to prevent XSS attacks. What is the purpose of data SLY test block in HTL? A data SLY test, like it says test, is used for conditional rendering. It means it allows you to conditionally include or exclude part of the template based on the evaluation of an expression. So for example, this is my Sling model and there is a property called name inside this Sling model. What I am doing is first I am testing if it is there. Data SLY test, is it there? Then only I am printing hello, the same name. Next question is how do we perform iteration in HTL? So use the data SLY repeat block, that is one of the HTL block attribute to iterate over a collection. So for example, this is my undefined list and inside that I want to iterate items, right? So these items, and then each items will have the name property, right, and the price property. So I will just use the repeat dot item and then item will have the attributes. So item dot name, item dot price. I mean first I am taking for each items I am fetching the information in item and then item dot name and item dot price. Next question is explain the concept of data SLY include block in HTL, and it is used to include content from other HTL template or scripts. So we can include script or another template or HTL. It is useful, it is helpful for reusing the component and fragment. So it is one of the best practice if we can reuse it, so just reuse it. So in the example, we can see we have just included header.html using the data sly include. So yeah, what are HTL contexts and how are they used? HTL contexts are used to define the scope in which variables are accessible. They can include the request context, page context, and more. Understanding contexts help manage variable scope and ensure that data is correctly bound and rendered. Describe how you would handle internationalization IAT in HTL. Internationalization is handled in HTL using resource bundles and the data SLY include attribute. You can use the resource bundle to fetch localized string and include them in your template. So what we will do, we have just use data SLY use I18N and the path of the bundle, and then we are using how does HTL ensure security and prevent XSS attacks? HTL automatically escapes HTML output to prevent cross-site scripting XSS attacks. This is achieved by encoding characters that could potentially be harmful if rendered directly in the browser. What are some best practices for optimizing HTML performance? Minimizing the use of complex logic within HTML templates, leveraging HTML's caching mechanism, avoiding excessive nesting of components, and using efficient data queries and minimizing data processing in templates. How do you debug HTML templates? Debugging HTML involves checking for syntax errors, ensuring that expressions or variables are correctly used, and using browser developer tools to inspect rendered HTML. The AEM developer console and logs can also provide insights into the issues. So that's it, and I want to extend a heartfelt thank to everyone who watched this video on AEM interviews. It was pleasure sharing insights on how to navigate the interview process, and I hope you found the strategies and advice valuable. Your engagement and thoughtful questions truly made this session interactive and enriching. Remember, preparation is just the key and confidence is your best asset. Wishing you all the best in the interview journey. If you have any further question or need more guidance, please feel free to reach out. Thanks once again for your time and participation. And if you like this video, please like it and please subscribe the channel. Thanks everyone.